My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voice of Wrestling Network.
The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing, they're easy to toss in my bag on the go, plus they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA and FSA, eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code podcast at GRUNS.co.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back to Those Days, a Michinoku Pro Retrospective. Episode 17, These Days. Those Days is brought to you by Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as Open the Voice Gate. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as the dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Open the Voice Gate on social media at Open Voice Gate. And if you'd like to donate to the show, you click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com letting site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or reoccurring donation, no obligation whatsoever. I'm one of your hosts, it's your old pal Mike Spears, joined as always by our other host Case Lowe. And Case, for the first time on Those Days, we have a special guest with us here today for episode 17.
Yeah, normally I would tell you that, hey, I'm doing fine, life is good, whatever, we'd exchange some pleasantries. Not interested in doing that this time around, Mike. Forget I'm here for a minute, and please introduce our special guest.
Absolutely. Joining us is a close personal friend of both of ours, the host of Alan 4L's Pro Wrest Paradise on Pro Wrestling Torch VIP. It's Alan Cunningham. Alan, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very nervous about constantly botching these days and those days, because in the prep for this show, in like exchanging messages with you guys, I don't know how many times I typed out one and then backspaced it and then wrote the other when I realized I was saying the wrong thing. So
I'm glad that I'm not the only one that's been plagued with that. Even though I'm the one that named the show, it has been nothing but strife in my life for the last 18 months. I get it wrong all the time.
Yep. Me too. And you have a younger brain than me, Case, so you have less of an excuse, I think.
No, but spiritually, I'm 95 years old at this point. I'm kind of reaching the end of the line.
I don't think I've ever told you this, guys, but I'm just going to just crack the lid off this one right now. I meant to tell you this a few times, I keep forgetting. But when Mike said, when you refer to me as your great friend, which I greatly appreciate, I am such a good friend of these guys that when I was cooped up in hospital following my liver transplant 2 years ago, and I was on all the drugs, and all the drugs I was on, the steroids, this was probably during the 48 hours where they were giving me extra steroids because I was rejecting the new liver. So I was a real petri dish of things going on, and as a result there was no sleep happening, but there was a lot of hallucinations happening. And I swear to God, amongst the few hallucinations I remember, one, I went down the corridor and was telling the nurses that I was the president of the United States of America. That legit happened. And
you share so many views with the president. That makes sense. It's easy to
Yeah,
confuse
yeah,
those
yeah,
two.
yeah.
I think I'd have been doing a better job if they put me in place at that point. But
And that's what I was about
one-
to say is, could we do a trade here?
and another one is that myself and my friends, Case and Mike, we rounded each other up with our fourth friend, Masato Yoshino, to go and hunt for Naruki Doi, who had been kidnapped by Colombian drug lords. I was in my hotel room, pacing around, sweat pouring off me, moving things around, and I remember it vividly now as like a thing that I went through, and it was like it occupied a solid, like, I think 90 minutes of my night.
So which one of us was like the vehicle specialist? Which one was on point? Which one was explosives?
I can't remember those quite specific details to that degree, Mike. But yeah, I remember us needing to go get Yoshino so that we could begin the operation of saving Doi. That was the key detail I remember.
Naturally.
I mean,
Where
that's the
does-
hedge point.
Alan, where does your wife fall into this? Is she helping us out, or was she present for any of this?
No, she was at home, just sick of being in the hospital, I think. She probably saw me starting the hallucination. Look, I'm going to leave you to this. You work this out. I need to go home and actually get some sleep myself. So work away there.
Oh my goodness. Alan, it is an absolute delight to have you here. I'm trying to think of the last time that the three of us did a show together, which was maybe when Masato Yoshino retired.
I think
aside from
on
quiz
VoiceGate,
shows,
quiz shows would have been it. Other than that.
Quiz shows. Yeah, well, I blocked those out of my mind immediately after they happened because Joe Gagney rigs them against me. So I don't really consider those to be real. But I think the last time that the three of us just chopped up wrestling the way we're going to do today was probably 5 years ago when Masato Yoshino retired. We have a different topic this time around, Alan. We are going to be talking about the most consequential show, at least the most infamous show in the history of Michinoku Pro, which is These Days, not Those Days, which is the name of this podcast, but These Days 10/10/96, as well as some other footage we have from September of 1996 that we'll get to specifically because Alan is on this show. But Alan, we don't really have guests on this show ever. Normally, Mike and I just jump straight into the timeline and we talk about whatever is happening in the world of 1990s Japanese wrestling. But Alan, you're here, and I would like to hear about what your relationship to Michinoku Pro is, the beginning of you watching this footage, how it's evolved over time, where Michinoku Pro ranks in the pantheon of promotions that you enjoy. Any immediate, straight to the dome thoughts you have on this promotion, I would like to hear.
I think the origin of me and anything to do with Michinoku Pro would have to be Raw in 1997, or actually would have been, I guess, Canadian Stampede in 1997 when Sasuke wrestled Taka when he did the WWF matches. And yeah, Jim Ross got the great Sasuke and and all that. And yeah, that was probably one of my first bits of knowledge or interactions with Japanese wrestling in general, I would say. Yeah, just like little fleeting things, I suppose, previously, like, I don't know, Takao Omori in the Royal Rumble 96. And but yeah, yeah, that was probably the first thing. So it was a name that, and because to be fair to Jim Ross, he did get the name wrong, but he was putting Great Sasuke over quite a bit and talking about how he was a big star and this and that and the other. So it led to him having a reverence in my mind. And I would have been 12 in 1997. So, formative years. And when I think Japanese wrestling, then for those next couple of years, Great Sasuke is kind of one of the big legendary stars in my head. It was probably over the course of 10 to 12 years after that I finally was able to reconcile the fact that Great Sasuke was in his early 20s essentially at this point, or mid 20s, and he wasn't basically for me as a 12-year-old in 1997, it was when Mil Mascaras would show up in a Royal Rumble and Great Sasuke is these two men have had the same careers essentially. And they're just both at that status, and as we see on this show, it's quite different. But Yeah, so like that's kind of the initial, okay, this is a thing. I don't know if the promotion Michinoku Pro registered with me until I got the ECW Barely Legal videotape. I'd probably seen, there was probably some stuff in Power Slam magazine when I started getting that from like 98, 99. I'd probably seen mentions of it. I think there was like a supplement at some point in Power Slam, and I'm not sure if it was before or after I got Barely Legal, but it was probably like 2000, 2001. They had they would do these like once a year sort of supplements, whereas this little mini magazine attached to the outside of the larger magazine, and you'd pull it off, and it would be its own little kind of I don't know, 6 inch by 6 inch kind of magazine. It's the size of a DVD, basically, a DVD case. And then they had like one that was like the best junior heavyweights of all time, I think, one the greatest wrestling shows of all time, and then one that was the sexiest women in wrestling. All of which were near dear to my heart as a 13, 14-year-old boy.
Alexandra York.
um, but I think these days might have been in the greatest show. I should have probably checked that because I have all that old Power Slam stuff in old presses somewhere in the house. So, but might have taken me a while to dig it out. But yeah, it might have been in there. But Barely Legal. I know I got that VHS in 2000, 2001 because that was um, when all the ECW tapes basically flooded Ireland. Like HMV, different video retailers around the place, they just all it was a new distribution deal that ECW got, I think, through a company called Delta, I want to say, in the UK and Ireland. And
But those ECW releases, they were commercial
Mhm.
releases, not like bootlegs.
Yeah. These
Oh,
were
that's
like the
interesting.
official. This was like all the official tapes, the same. I think like all the same covers and everything that would have been. Well, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, it was like all the pay-per-views, and then like the ones that were the specific kind of compilation ones, like Extreme Warfare. And I know those were ones that were like out in America previously
Oh
because
yeah.
those were the ones they would hype on the commercials that Paulie would voice over like a million times. So yeah, we got all those in like 2000, 2001, and I got a bunch of them. And Barely Legal was obviously one of the ones I got, and saw the Michinoku Pro match on that, and Joey Styles was thanking Dave Scherer of OneWrestling.com and Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer as he was spitting out all these facts. And that was me learning about Michinoku Pro in the same way. I once did a show um, on like the idea of like a match, an unknown match coming in representing something and like blowing crowds away, and went through kind of a bunch of examples of that. And like to me, that's the ultimate, one of the ultimate initial examples of it. Like obviously Dragon Gate Six Man, Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate in Chicago and NXT. I think it was just after that happened I did that show. But yeah, there's a bunch of matches like this, and that's kind of a definitive one. And in that case, I was, the person just being blown away and not knowing what this was for the most part, and seeing these guys and thinking it was amazing. And yeah, and it was the Japanese Blue World Order. I don't think they were called Kaientai at any point on that show. I could be wrong, but Japanese BWO was absolutely what they're referring to them as the most. They were wearing the BWO T-shirts as well. So yeah, that was a thing about it. And then oh yeah, of course. So like, I'm probably skipping a key bit here. Obviously, like Taka and the lads had a run in the WWF, initially as Club Kamikaze. And I remember when they came out, and this would have been when I was watching Raw on like Scramble Vision, and so I couldn't see what was happening. But I was like listening to it and playing my little like Championship Manager season with like Barcelona or whatever on the PC, with listening to Raw in the background. Wild Friday nights for me. And the yeah, just I remember. I think they attacked. I don't know if they attacked Val Venus or was it Taka they attacked the first time they arrived, and like I just thought it was the most dangerous thing, just from like what they were, the way it was being described in commentary. I was like, oh my god, it's like these Japanese men have like hit the ring, and they were all wearing like sort of real. Just, they were all wearing like, I suppose, like grunge attire. Kind of, it wasn't a motif they kind of stuck with in the WWF for very long, but like they were all kind of wearing, yeah, like just grungy kind of gear, and like just like they just like. I think the thing for me that represented danger is they just come off the street. Like it seemed like they'd come through the crowd, off the street, and they were just like running roughshod. And I was like, wow, this is. I thought they were a real dangerous proposition and a force that like Stone Cold Steve Austin was going to need to reckon with in the coming months. And I was incorrect.
that did it. I mean, look, I don't know a ton about the WWF, but I don't believe that happened.
No. They did stuff with the oddities, if I recall, and choppy PP and all that we don't need to go into. But WWE employing like a 15-year-old girl to play Mr. Yamaguchi's wife. But
is that true?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Bix has done the detective work on that one case. You don't need to worry about it.
God bless David Bixen's man, doing jobs that nobody else wants to do. I will say, we're not quite at the point, obviously, where Taka leaves and goes to the WWF, and I don't plan on covering a ton of that stuff on this series. I mean, maybe some Super Astros footage I want to dive into, but
you got to do the handicap match where it's like, I don't know exactly what the teams were, but it was something along the lines of Kaientai DX versus Bradshaw and Terry Funk in a handicap match.
Yeah, I think that was on Shotgun Saturday Night.
Yeah, I remember that being a barrel of laughs. I would recommend that.
All right. Well, I'm unfamiliar with that cage match listing. I will look into that.
I find it kind of fascinating, like Alan, just to go back on one of the things you touched on. We're at like this point, at least chronologically, like 1996. We're about to get through that this year pretty quickly from here. But HMV and our equivalent would have been Sam Goody's or Suncoast Video. I felt like for Alan, we're about the same age there, give or take a year or two. I feel like for our generation of wrestling fans, and especially like being able to be exposed to different kinds of wrestling, especially from at an era where I was just getting WOW magazines, which had, it was the Salacious Aftermath that they put together on that. But really, for like me, I felt like going to a Sam Goody's and a Suncoast Video when I was 11 or 12 or 13, like, and getting to see like the ECW tapes, and even like I'm trying to think of like the other tapes that they would have had that were. It was far before Dave Meltzer doing the gold tapes with Cornette, but I felt like that there was like this wave of exposure you would get in like the late or the 97, 98, 99 into 2000, just with the ability to see these tapes suddenly at your local CD retailer, basically.
And I had like, it was that like wave of that stuff being out there met with just like, speaking for me, a huge appetite to just consume this stuff. And like, I was a completely content WWF kid. Like, I had WCW for like 18 months when I was like 8, and then that was gone. Then we didn't get that anymore. So it was just WWF only. So 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, only WWF. And I was completely content with that. But this is where I cannot relate to how people are now with like the incuriosity and just the resistance to anything that's not what they're used to. Because I was like fine with just having WWF, but once I got to see, oh, I can have all this other stuff too, and it wasn't like I was like, oh well, fuck WWF, I'm gonna be a ECW fan. It was like I'd still watch and be excited for what was going on Raw. I still wanted to see what Stone Cold was getting up to with Vince, and whether or not Club Kamikaze were going to eventually track him down. But I also was like, want to see this RVD guy. He seems fucking cool. And then it was just each year, new thing would come in. It was like, yes, give me more of that. AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels in 2001, seeing them in WWA and hearing about them on a British radio show that was on every Saturday evening, where they would talk about like the FWA, and they had a big show coming up, and they were hyping that. They're like, we're bringing in AJ Styles, and he's incredible. And I was like, oh, he's that guy I saw in WA. And then I started to read reviews of ROH and Power Slam, and I was like, and it was like, give me more. And then we get the Wrestling Channel, obviously, and it's like, okay, it just became then at that point a test of how big my appetite was for all this other wrestling. The answer was pretty big, and I then, like, that coincides with me kind of going to college and stuff in 04, 05, 06, and just kind of having time to just dig into this stuff, and like especially with Japanese wrestling, that's when it really took off for me, and that's when like I started to go from knowing Michinoku Pro with just this like base level, bare bones knowledge and just familiarity from where I had seen their guys in WF and ECW, to now learning about the promotion itself, learning about like the chronology of the promotion. And it's mainly through Death Valley Driver Board and the Dave Ditch website. So yeah, just kind of, and I remember specifically, I think it was June 2008, I want to say it was. And I remember going on, I just finished my last set of college exams, I think in June 2008, and bunch of free time, no obligations for like weeks. And I remember staying up super late. And this was like, again, June. So it was around the time of year where it gets bright very early. And I stayed up for the first time in my life to see the sunrise, and I didn't even realize. I was like, "Oh, holy shit! Not seen this happen before." As I was staying up all night watching old Michinoku Pro and WEC, like Uriah Faber fighting like I don't know.
Hey, WEC was so
Miguel
good.
Torre.
Uriah Faber, Anthony Pettis, and all of that. Yeah.
In many ways, the Michinoku Pro of MMA.
Oh, the Showtime kick broke my brain in MMA, like the same way that I feel like the Sasuke special broke everyone's brain in 1994.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, that was, and I remember that was when I around that time I was like, oh, Kaintai DX are just like the best. And I remember that was around when I downloaded, I hunted down and downloaded their theme song, which we get to hear in all its glory on this show. But yeah, I at that, that's just kind of with all the other Japanese wrestling I was kind of consuming and learning about. Michinoku Pro was at the forefront, and I had huge respect for its history. I very quickly kind of went into the went from kind of these days as the big show and getting the DVD, which I showed you a picture of the DVD, which I still have in my possession, to going and seeing the December 16th, 1996 10-man tag, which I think is a much better version of what we're going to talk about today, and going from like having this reverence for these days to being like, well, actually the better match is 12-16. And I think I got that through like I think it might have been through like a Rob Naylor comp, I want to say, probably was. So yeah, like and I went through just like kind of all the stuff that was out there, and it was kind of whatever was on the ditch side, and random links that were posted up. But I never, no, do you know what? I did get it. I did get like an IVP video set. I can't remember when I got that and went through it, but yeah, I got an IVP video set. That was probably like 2011 or 12 when I went back through and probably saw a lot of the stuff for like the second time, and then there would have been matches I was seeing for the first time. So and then yeah, not until now, following along with you guys, have I kind of gone through it all again. And I feel like watching it now, like I'm watching a lot of it with fresh eyes. And so there is probably stuff I'm seeing for the first time. Like, I know for sure I've never seen that men's Teo Jinsei Shinzaki match, which you guys did early in the series, which in the car park, which is, I think, my favorite discovery of the whole series so far. I did love that Taka Shiryu match you guys were hyping up last time, but for me, I'd know Teo versus Shinzaki has a close place in my heart. The Sasuke versus, why can't I think of the guy's name? The bandit, the culprit, the henchman. What was
The
his name?
convict.
The convict.
There you go. Oh, Superboy. Did you guys ever listen to the podcast? I feel like I put it up in the channel, but he did a podcast with as a Club Lucha, I think it was the guys. He did a podcast a couple of years ago, and I was just listening to it last summer. And I think I put it up in the VoiceGate channel, but it was really good. He comes from a wrestling family. He's got all these great stories about like California wrestling and stuff. That was pretty cool. But sorry, side tangent there.
No,
Um,
I don't remember seeing a link to that. I'm gonna have to look that up.
yeah, I can dig it out again and send it. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer what you guys
It
were looking
does.
for?
Let me ask you this, Alan, because I think specifically the last few times that you and I have sat down to record different podcasts, whether it be some of the greatest wrestler ever stuff we did or the Eddie Guerrero retrospective show we did last November, that I still like. I think about that show a lot and how happy I am with just all the things that we talked about on that show. When you go through the Michinoku Pro footage this time around, is there anything that you think modern wrestling could take away from Michinoku Pro and implement almost immediately? I mean, yes, I think, wrestling would be better off if they had the polish that these Michinoku Pro guys do, but is there anything when you see this footage you go, oh, that specifically is missing from wrestling in 2026?
So a big thing that's been popping into my head recently is the idea of hiding the seams. A lot of wrestlers seem to struggle these days with hiding the seams, and what I mean by that is kind of the obvious. Like, look, I've probably got a pretty keen eye for wrestling. I've seen a lot of matches. I kind of know how, for the most part, how the wrestlers do what they do. But I'll watch wrestling, old wrestling, even some new wrestling, and I will not be distracted by seeing the seams of what they're doing. And then I'll watch a lot of stuff currently. And I'm going to give a really unfair example. I'm going to pick out a guy who is far from like the worst culprit. But for whatever reason, he's a guy I really want to like and I think has a lot of potential. But every time I watch him wrestle, I just see the seams jumping off the screen to me. And it's like, I'm begging him to just find a way to not make it so that I know exactly what he's doing and what he's trying to do and what move he's about to take and what move he's about to do. And that's Drilla Maloney. I would love if there was more guys who would work like I suppose with Michinoku Pro, it's because like everyone would be like, okay, well, like you could more easily hide the seams in like slower style, more shoot style, whatever. Michinoku Pro is like modern, trend-setting, trailblazing, innovative, creative wrestling, fast-paced for the most part, and yet it feels like a struggle, feels like a fight. Like I'm watching Taka and Shiryu work, and I don't know what's coming next. They're not telegraphing stuff. It's not. There's not like yeah. It's sure. There's obviously sort of some set sequences and some set moves and stuff like that, but there's a lot more sense of it's a lot more immersive. You can lose yourself in it a lot more than you can a lot of kind of what modern wrestling's house style essentially, because we do have such a global house style across wrestling now, which wasn't a thing in 1996. Like what Michinoku Pro were doing was a blend of so many things that they had made their own. Um, so yeah, I suppose that's the big thing for me is I would love if and like this show that we're going to talk about, I'm not going to like rave about this show as being an incredible show. I'm not expecting you guys will either. But there's so much things on this show that if I was a wrestler who was going to be wrestling on Forbidden Door tomorrow night, I would be just watching. I'd be putting my phone away and I'd be glued to the screen watching this just to get inspiration from how these guys are working, what they're doing that works, just to think about wrestling a bit differently and just to consume wrestling a bit differently from what they're seeing around them and what they've been doing themselves. So like yeah, like And I'm sure there are some wrestlers that are studying tape for sure. Of course, there is. There always is, and I think they probably benefit from it. But I watched Drilla Maloney, and um, while I know he's like a big wrestling fan and guy who loves pro wrestling, I don't get the impression he's like immersing himself in like watching old, whether it's, I don't know, Hashimoto or whether it's old Great Sasuke, and like seeing things and being like, okay, how can my work jump off the screen and be more immersive like these guys are? What am I not doing? What can I do differently? And yeah, I just, if I was wrestling on Forbidden Door tomorrow night, I'd just be, a lot of my prep would just be going back and watching stuff like this show. Because I would love to see something tomorrow on that pay-per-view that kind of has that unpredictable feel. I guess that a lot of Michinoku Pro does when I watch it. It feels like you're watching something where you you can't be sure what's going to happen next, because the wrestlers, as they're doing it, don't know what's going to happen next because they're just kind of going with flow. Um, so yeah, that's, I guess, not a big revelation or anything specific, but yeah, that's the major thing I'm thinking when I'm watching it.
Mike, same question to you, because we're about, I think we're where we have our sights on this project.
And
we're
shows in car parks, more of that.
shows in car parks, yes, and that's that. We all agree on there.
Number one takeaway.
Number one takeaway. It always was such a great backdrop for, say, Tournament of Death. We really need to bring those back. It definitely has the same charm in America that it does in Japan. But
Hey,
and I should mention as well, just very quick, the the production stuff that Mike has mentioned before as well, like the backstage interviews, 100%. I don't need to repeat all the points he's made on those. People have heard them listening to this series, but co-sign that all the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, for where we want to go with this project, we're probably about halfway through all the footage. I know there's a lot of stuff in 1997 we have to cover. I want to get through some of the Crazy Max stuff in 98, 99. The goal is to go through Super J-Cup 2000 if this is the first time you're hearing this. But same question to you. Is there anything that you've come across where you go, oh, there's, I think between the three of us, there's a million things we'd change about modern wrestling, but this specific thing that Michinoku Pro was doing is absent from today?
Yeah, I think that directly what you kind of see, at least through these first 17 episodes, 3 years and change of Michinoku Pro, I think a big takeaway isn't necessarily towards wrestlers themselves, but towards promoters. I think that what you basically get to see and what happens, and forgive me if I'm speaking too far out of turn here. Essentially, we are given a how-to book on how to do a local territory, at least through the first 3 years of this promotion. And I would argue that this is a much more stronger use case or case study than, say, how everyone goes on about Smoky Mountain Wrestling that's happening at the same time here. Essentially, Smoky Mountain Wrestling was doing it on easy mode when you consider it was none of Cornette's money and all the stuff that was going on with like the WWF relationship, and the reality that like Smoky Mountain, you're talking about at most 4 years, maybe 5 years of like this. But what we see here, at least through 1996, is how a local promotion one can operate in its region of Tohoku, and in such a way that now 30 years, we're almost like exactly 30 years later at this point, that the legacy still exists and endures in a lot of different ways. And I think that a lot of, at least as it relates to indie bookers and indie promoters, at least in the United States, as we're like in this weird space of the post boom, post COVID, and kind of taking it back to its struts, like how to do a local promotion, I feel like is one of the big takeaways. And then, yeah, as Alan mentioned, like the production note, even on those days, there's things that happen away from the 10-man tag that I think are things that you just do not really see done really effectively. And it's not even necessarily like wrestling things, like the great zebra showing up and having like a little bit there, like, and things like this that just make it a much richer production, I feel like. And And at least like I've not been to an indie show in a couple of years outside of Mania weekend. There's no sense of that anymore. And I don't know if it's just the way that it's Western sensibilities or not like this, but like consistently, case whenever we get a full show of Michinoku Pro, we get to like see like this incredibly varied just performance. Like, yes, it still has like all the lucha stuff that like we kind of anticipate, but I mean, you got the comedy in there that at least for the native audience is incredibly over. You have the backstage promos and just like the not to get ahead of our skis here, they do one of the coolest production things that I think that I've seen in wrestling after the 10-man tag on this show. And when we get to it, I will throw my roses at it just because of how cool it was basically to do this one production trait. But yeah, I really think like the idea of this being a thesis on how to run a territory promotion in the modern age is something that a lot of people, promoters, bookers alike, I think can learn a lot from just studying Michinoku Pro that probably haven't before.
I agree with everything you said with the caveat that you look at it from almost a regional or indie perspective, whereas I think this is my primary problem with Japanese wrestling right now is, and I think it's a problem in American wrestling too, but it's really bothering me in Japan at just the lack of vision, the lack of presentation, the fact that in 2026 a Dragon Gate show doesn't feel all that different from a New Japan show, which doesn't feel all that different from a Noah show. It all, like, Michinoku Pro had a clear vision and they had clear cultural influences and they had an idea of presenting their product that I would say up until the last few years was something that was ingrained in all of Japanese wrestling, that, you know, everybody had, even if the house style was starting to blend more and more into this homogenous zone that we're in now, these promotions had backgrounds and lineages and traditions that all made them feel different. And I do feel like that has really been ripped away. And it's so interesting to me watching some of this footage and seeing, you know, an appearance by Super Astro or the Mascaras and Dos Caras appearances, and thinking about the way that Michinoku really leans on the history of Lucha Libre to present their product at times, and how in a post Ultimo Dragon coming back to Dragon Gate way, it has seemed like Dragon Gate has wanted to embrace their Mexican roots a little bit more, but they're only doing it halfway. And there's nothing that you can tie to modern day Dragon Gate that you can go back and, even from a presentation standpoint, tie into the history of Lucha Libre, as broad as that sounds. You know, these guys, for working a regional indie, come across like stars for the most part. They have these very unique presentations, these very unique entrances, this very unique gear that all seems to work for them. And I think for a long time that was just a given when we went to wrestling in this part of the world. And I feel like, especially post-COVID, that has gone away. And that's been the thing that has bummed me out when I go from, oh, let's watch a bunch of Michinoku Pro to, okay, I got to catch up on Dragon Gate, Noah, God forbid, New Japan, whatever it is. Oh, this has so much more life. It doesn't feel as drab as it does in 2026.
Yeah, I think their like focus of vision and the way that it's all tapped into things that their fan base either are super aware of, or it has enough little thing that they go like, hey, you know what? It's funny that George Takano has shown up as Giant Zebra, and that's the Tiger Mask character, and they're doing comedy based off of that. And there's a commonality there that I feel like it in a lot of ways, whenever there's attempts to do this in modern wrestling, it kind of falls flat, whereas it just feels completely appropriate in Michinoku Pro.
I would agree with that. Before we jump into the timeline, Alan, do you have any other broad Michinoku thoughts that maybe don't pertain to the footage that we've reviewed for this episode, but just things that you want to get out there before we get into specifics?
I think what we're starting to see in this period that you guys are in now, and obviously very much on this show, is how Kai and Tai DX are, I think, in many ways revolutionizing what a heel stable can look like. and how they can work together and the fluidity that they can bring together. Like when you think of great heel staples that preceded them, like the Four Horsemen, and would be obviously a big example, and Dangerous Alliance, and as great as those teams were, I don't feel like there's no combination of them that worked as the singular cohesive unit that Kai and IDX did. Maybe some Lucha trios, but even then, like with a lot of Lucha's trios wrestling, like we've all gone back and watched like early AAA stuff and UWA stuff and the Hamadi UWF stuff, and as fun as that stuff is, cohesive is probably not a word I would ever use to describe a lot of it. It's disjointed in a fun way that Lucha often is. But Kai and IDX, they brought like a slickness to how they operated, right down to just even their presentation, just how they all looked together. I just thought it was a real smooth operation, the Kai and IDX group. And it's honestly like it's a group that I feel could have gone on longer and done more and had an even bigger legacy. But I think having only the short period where they were all together kind of does make it more of a legendary run, in the same way that like say like the Hollywood Blondes are remembered and have this big legacy, even though they only really teamed together for like 10 months at most, probably less.
Yeah, it's like the difference between Kai and DX and Crazy Max is that the Kai and DX stuff is so focused to a short period of time that it's pretty easy to go, okay, here's what made them great, here's the matches to watch. But to explain Crazy Max to somebody who essentially go from 97, 98 to 2004 and have multiple incarnations under the same banner is a much trickier thing to do, even if they're equally as great.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
let's
I'd love to see.
go ahead.
I'd love to see just in modern Dragon Gate, like the heel stables we've had. I think Blood Generation were one which really I felt still looked in how they worked like a Kai and DX,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like what we have now is so far removed from that with Gaija Dokuro and so many of the heel staples we've had over the years in Dragon Gate. And some of them have had like their positives for sure. Don't get me wrong; some have been actively good, but I don't think since Blood Generation there's been any that kind of went about their business in the way that Kai and DX did.
Well, Alan, what if instead of a 32-minute 10-man Lucharesu tag match, we gave you a 12-minute Lucharesu tag match with referee interference and a low blow finish? Would that do anything for you? Do you think that would sell tickets?
It doesn't sound as appealing on the surface, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Case, God knows, it seems like a unique idea in modern wrestling. Not a lot of that referee interference or distraction you speak of. That is some novel thinking. No one seems to be doing anything like that. So let's maybe give that a shot.
Something like that would never happen in the King of Sports, so it might as well just be reserved for a wacky Lucharesu promotion like Dragon Gate. But hey, I'm sure it won't affect the match quality at all. I'm sure this promotion will still be. We'll still be roaring as we head into the biggest show of the year with no main event 1 month out.
And let's make sure that all of these heel units, they all like the color black.
They all like the color black. What if our world champion exclusively wrestled matches with guys that he doesn't have chemistry with? What if no one that was over was pushed and nobody that was pushed was over? What if we did that? What a marvelous job Ryo Saito's done this year. Let's jump into the timeline.
We could go down a lot more fun tangents than that one. So let's close that door.
Yeah, let's move on.
Let's jump into the timeline here. We'll just hit a few quick things, mostly on the build to the 10-10 show, but just to show where the coverage was at in the Observer at this point on August 26, 1996. And I guess for those that maybe, I imagine we're going to have a lot of first-time listeners here. The most recent episode, we exclusively covered the World Championship Series and the Great Sasuke's trip to Mexico in July of 1996. At the beginning of that episode, we talked about Sasuke and Tiger Mask going to Mexico, wrestling in CMLL. There's some really fun footage that we found there. And then the rest of the episode was dedicated to the World Championship Series, which eventually led to the J Crown. And we concluded with Jushin Thunder Liger finally, after years and years of anticipation, making his Michinoku Pro debut. So in the timeline now, we are at the end of August of 1996, and we have this note from the Observer on the 26th of August, where Dave says that Michinoku Pro will be holding a tournament from 9/12 to 9/23 to crown a new UWA middleweight champion for Mexico. The title had been vacant for a long time when Ultimo Dragon was champ, and he left the promotion. That is not entirely true. We talked about how on the last episode, Masayoshi Motegi bought the title and became champion under the Wrestle Dream Factory banner, and that was factored into the J Crown tournament. But that has since been vacated once again, and we'll have a new UWA middleweight champion on this tour. We also talked about how Sasuke wrestled Ultimo Dragon on August 5th, 1996, and fractured his skull and had been out of action since then. Dave notes in the September 2nd Observer in 1996, he says, nothing much new regarding Great Sasuke, although all the magazines had photos this past week of him in a hospital bed. Jinsei Shinzaki, on the other hand, is expected to start back full-time with Michinoku Pro Wrestling with the Sumo Hall show on 10/10 as the top draw if Sasuke can't return. I'll mention this here, and we can get into this more when we get into the 10/10 show, but just a quick anecdote of there's a shot at the beginning of the 10/10 show where they show Sasuke in the hospital, and they don't show his face, but you can see the lower half of his body, and his mask is hanging off of some hospital equipment. And it is perhaps the single greatest shot that a wrestling cameraman has ever captured on film.
That's, that is great. There was another shot in the same package that was, I was going to say, like, more or less the same thing about. Will I say what it was?
Yeah, because now I'm dying to know.
So and they showed this a couple of times during like the pre-show, and there was a bunch of stuff pre-show, but they show Sasuke in a wheelchair getting brought to, I don't know, visit/harass Jinsei Shinzaki in his like temple or wherever he was.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he goes up to him, and you see him kind of like in one. I think they had a video clip and some stills. In the video clip, it's like he's kind of pleading with him a bit, and then they have this still, which is just Shinzaki turning his back on Sasuke and walking away, and Sasuke like leaning over the side of the wheelchair, like desperately reaching out for him, and it's incredible. I just thought that was like just the most. I'm sure it appeared in the magazines, that still shot, but yeah, I just thought that was amazing. But yeah, a couple of great artistic moments there, which definitely goes back to what Case was saying about like production and creativity on the last show you guys did, and editing, and yeah, we got some really nice editing choices over this pre-show stuff that we got.
Yeah, very much so.
And I found it like interesting, like Alan, we were able to get our hands on the Shinzaki autobiography that was mainly about his WWF 1994, but it ends essentially with 10/10/96. And the way that it kind of lines up with what Shinzaki was talking about, where he, after the Muto match, he starts doing more of his temple pilgrimages, and he runs into at the last temple he was supposed to go to, who was there to wait them? Sasuke. And that played out like right when he was supposed to be like in character doing all of that. And at least for me, after like reading that, it really provided a nice layer of spice to have that kind of aspect to it.
It's a really, really well done package. We'll talk a little bit more about it in just a second. But we also have to note that on September 9th, 1996, this is from The Observer, that Great Sasuke is now out of the hospital and doing office work, but no word on when he'll return to the ring. And Dave also announces that Jinsei Shinzaki again will be returning to Michinoku Pro shortly as the main draw with Sasuke out of action. He notes that the UWA middleweight tournament will be between Tiger Mask, Minz Teo, Super Astro, Masato Yakishiji, and Shiryu, which is the greatest combination of wrestlers you could possibly ask for. And before we dive into our first bit of footage, we have this note from the 16th Observer, where Dave says that Great Sasuke made his first public appearance since his injury on his own show on September 1st, but he had to be helped around the arena in a wheelchair. Michinoku Pro is going to keep its 10/10 Sumo Hall booking, even though its top draw can't appear. And the main event will be Hayabusa versus Jinsei Shinzaki. And that takes us to... Oh, go ahead.
Do we think that like there was ever any doubt that they were going to lose this booking given the financial state of where Michinoku Pro would have been in 1996.
The advance for this show is so strong that there's no way they would have done. I've got a note about that a little bit later where this is an advanced sellout. They, Sasuke or not, had moved a ton of tickets for this show. So it was going to happen one way or the other. I guess.
Yeah.
Did it sell out? I don't think it did sell out, right? I think
it was a claimed sellout. It was, but it was.
I remember
it was $79.80.
I was trying to dig up the Sasuke quotes that I got for Fighting Spirit like 13 years ago. I think they're in Facebook messages, and I couldn't log in and get them, but I did see like a preview of some quotes, and it was one from Mr. Utagawa. Has he come up in the show? But he was like one of the Office guys, and he was involved in 2013 when I was doing that article. But he was a UWF guy, and he was there in '96, set the show and everything, and he said that they were like they didn't hit their target of a sellout, but they were still really happy with it.
Oh, interesting. No, Dave has the advance on this show. He says on 10/7 of the Observer that 2 weeks out they had 9,000 tickets sold, which, is obviously not accurate if they're claiming 7,900. But it seemed like going into this show, and this is something that we've talked about whenever Michinoku Pro would come to Tokyo because it was so few and far between, but it was an advanced sellout in Cork and Hall. They always sold a ton of tickets before they got to Oda War. There wasn't a ton of walk-up. For this show, they seemed very confident going in, at least based on the Observer notes that we have, that, okay, it was going to be an okay house with or without Sasuke.
And I have to imagine that the deposit themselves, like, at least like from the stories that would be told 15 years later after 311, 2011, and Dragon Gate losing their sumo hall kind of thing there, that like a Ryogoku Kokogikan deposit, because you're dealing with the Japanese sumo association, made it completely unrealistic to expect them to pull out of that date regardless if Sasuke was there. That was kind of my original point, but yeah, no, having 8,000 tickets sold, there's no way in hell they were going to cancel that show.
No, so that takes us to our first bit of footage. This is from a comp tape that we will actually break down in full, not the next episode, but 2 episodes from now, as it spans from September of 1996 all the way through the end of the year. But we have footage in between 10/10 and December that I want to dedicate the next episode to. And then we will close out 1996 2 episodes from now with a full breakdown of this comp tape, as it features things like the 12/16/96 match that the three of us love so much. But because Alan is on this show, I wanted to make sure that we get a chance to talk about not necessarily the 9/14 Tiger Mask versus Shiryu match or the 9/15 Men's Teo versus Shiryu match.
But I have notes.
Oh my God, Alan, then give me the notes before we get to 9/23. Give me the notes.
Years before El Generico blew my mind the first time I saw him do his tornado DDT through the ropes. Did you guys catch Shiryu in these clips doing a fucking through the ropes tope con low?
Yes,
like through
awesome.
the corner, not like a homicide. Like he always does like the homicide one. Like he's the OG of that, and that rules. But he just casually ran up the apron and ran through the corner post and did one onto Teo. That blew my mind. Also, Men's Teo, not quite as spectacularly, but goddamn did it pop me when he did a bottom rope turning crossbody. It was like the least ambitious high fly. It was like something Don Fuji does, like tongue in cheek, but done in earnest. He goes to do like a big springboard, but he just only kind of goes to the bottom rope, and then instead of like doing a flip, he just kind of turns into a crossbody. Super unspectacular, but good for him. But were you gonna say something there, Mike?
Oh, I'm just saying Teo is the best. I was enjoying like him doing that, his rolling forearms in this one. Like he does no one does step through forearms anymore. Like where
yes, I know what you mean. The step through forearm. That's a 100%. Teo was great at that. That was one of his big. I suppose it's kind of like the Masato Tanaka, Misawa. I guess they probably all kind of got that from Misawa. Really, Misawa was the OG step through forearm guy. But Teo does another thing. He did it in because I was catching up on the stuff you did for the last show before going into my homework for this show. And in that match that gets cut off at the end of the last comp tape where he's wrestling, it's Tail versus Tiger Mask, maybe I want to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
He does a like like a knee crusher where you like put the guy's knee on your own sort of leg and you like slam it down. He does that from the top rope, like almost the way that Dean Malenko would give like Ray the top rope stomach breaker. That looked phenomenal. But on this match, or one of these matches, he does that to the floor, which looks insane. And the floor is like made of mud. I think it's.
I was
like,
wondering what the floor was. I couldn't tell if it was carpeted or what it was.
Yeah, well, they came up all dirty, but then at one point I thought that it wasn't actually dirt; it was blood. But then I think it was a mix of both because Teo's arm gets sliced open, and you see him in a backstage promo. Um, you see him in a backstage promo, and he's got this nasty gash running down his arm. It looks horrible. But also they're covered in dirt. So yeah, it was seemingly like in a field or something, or like with no grass. And but yeah, I suppose that made it so that he could do that knee breaker thing because you probably wouldn't want to do that like onto concrete or onto a basketball floor. You'd like break your ankle. But yeah, that looks pretty cool. And I am going to store in the back of your mind, guys, about that sliced arm with the Teo Tiger Mask deal there, because we're gonna come back to that in a while. But yeah, that was those are the things I had jotted down. Quick clipped stuff, but fun.
The Shiryu dive through the ring post. You're exactly right. I love your frame of references because I felt when you were talking about watching Michinoku Pro and WEC until the sun comes up, I go, God, this is why I've been friends with Alan for 15 years almost now. Like finally somebody gets me. But being able to explain that Shiryu is doing the El Generico Tornado DDT through the ring post, but it's the homicide style Tope Suicida is exactly what it is. I'm glad somebody else had that. I think he does it in the Taka match too, but that's a new thing that he started doing in 1996 that has blown me away because I mean Generico is kind of the only guy that does the through the ring post DDT, and I've never seen anybody do that dive beat other than Shiryu.
And with Generico, it's equal parts possible that he came up with that himself because he's creative, or it's equal part possible that he also was such a tape nut that he was watching these these matches from Shiryu back in like on comp tapes in like clipped form, and the Taka match which we didn't know about. Maybe El Generico watched that 30 years ago, and that's where he came up with his move. But yeah, it was very, very cool. And yeah, I just what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought.
Well, the reason we're talking about some stuff from September, normally again, I would just save this to all kind of break it down in one comp tape and make it a little bit easier to follow. But we get a match on 9/23 that when I thought, okay, I want to have a special guest on for 10/10/96. Let me look at where we're at in the footage. Okay, let me think about who I want to have. Okay, I want to have Alan on. Oh, there's this 9/23 match. That is Dick Togo, Shoichi Funaki, Danny Collins, and Shiryu versus Super Delphin, Gran Hamada, Super Astro, and Alexander Otsuka. I want my friend Alan talking about that match. Alan, had you seen this before? And what are your thoughts on it with 2026 eyes?
You want to talk about hiding the seams? Danny Boy Collins and Alexander Otsuka. Whew, that was some wrestling right there. And he exchanged those guys out. But all the guys in this match, like every combination of guys getting there, I was like, oh, this is so good. Yeah, completely fresh to me. If I knew this happened, I certainly didn't remember it. And what a mix of guys, what a mix of styles and interesting like pairings. It's so good. You see great technical wrestling. You see great high flying. You see great power moves. You see dynamic stuff. You see comedy stuff with like Super Astro doing like the little kick gimmick. I always forget the name of it that they do in Lucha Resu and
Kid Chan.
The Kin-chan, yeah, and I hadn't seen that in Michinoku Pro in a while. Like that was very early Michinoku Pro build stuff, like late Hamada UWF stuff. So it was nice to see that rear its head and it was kind of like for how serious and like intimidating Kaientai DX are as like a heel stable, which is kind of like new sort of thing to the promotion. Um, I think they were able to get away with partaking in that and not losing any of their edge. It was I liked how bewildered they all were, and so they sold it as being completely bewildered when it happened. And Dick Togo's spinning around, and then Super Astro just gives him the funniest slap of all time, and Togo sells it amazingly well. And just the timing of all these guys, just the comedic timing, the pro wrestling timing, the just performance timing that they all have and flowing with each other. It's just a joy to behold. Yeah, it's just so natural to them all. And Danny Collins, like
Yeah.
he was phenomenal in this. Like God, I wish we had more of him doing stuff like this on tape because that was just great. And yeah, I suppose you could say the same thing about Super Astro. Did I say Superboy earlier? I meant Super Astro, but Super Astro, to have more of him in Michinoku Pro would have been amazing. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, Danny Collins feels like the first like outsider. And I know Superboy already joined a Kaientai Deluxe on a previous episode, but Danny Collins working with those three, like he felt very much like a part of the group, and he really ingratiated himself. I felt like into the teamwork that was already well established, even though Togo, Funaki, and Shiryu isn't necessarily a normal pairing that we have seen so far with KDX. I thought that was fun. And I mean, Super Astro is such a good addition to this roster when he shows up. So it's a good time match. I was a little bugged with the audio syncing towards the end of it, but like, and whenever Alexander Otsuka shows up, I feel like out of a lot of that style of wrestlers that we get to see with pro wrestling, Fujiwara Gumi and now Battle Arts is showing up here. He always feels like the obvious highlight.
The Diet Butcher, and yeah, you want to talk about when I was getting into Japanese wrestling, a guy that I just picked up an affinity for. It was Alexander Otsuka. I loved that guy. He was so good. Just such a criminally underrated wrestler, such an underutilized wrestler. Like I don't know what his deal was. I guess he was probably just sort of 1 foot in wrestling, 1 foot in MMA a little bit. I'm not sure, just because he obviously did some Pride stuff, but like he was like a heavyweight wrestler. Like the guy had size to him, and he could go. And like I don't know how or why he didn't get picked up by one of the major promotions, or at least get a serious offer made to him. Maybe he did. Maybe he just had no interest. I don't know. But like that's a guy whose talents like could have taken him to top of the cards in any of the promotions. Like he had runs in like places like 0-1 and stuff, but he never was really it never really stuck. It was never like a big thing.
Well,
Never
he's a
consistent.
political casualty in the split between 0-1 and Noah right at the beginning of 0-1, because he's in that tag with Hashimoto.
Yeah.
And I want to say November of 2001 on that Noah show, and that's, you know, the start and end of that relationship pretty much. But there's a universe where that partnership sticks together for a little bit, and right when Noah starts to turn the corner and those homegrown guys get a little bit older, 02, 03, 04, Otsuka could have been right in the mix there. And that feels like that would have been the perfect opportunity for him to really become a pro wrestling star.
Yeah, and such a cool, unique look as well. I thought he was awesome. And he had a unique charisma to him. Like it was an understated charisma, but it was there.
Yeah, it was
And
still big. It was still a big projecting charisma, but it wasn't, I don't know if flashy is the right term, but he's not a guy that gets lost in the shuffle ever when you see him.
it's incredible entrance music. I don't like I pieced together this in my head, but it's like it's called like it's written AO Corner is like the name of the song. And you know when they're introducing guys in Japan, I don't know the colors for blue and red, but one of those corners, when the ring announcer says it, always sounds like "Ow Corner," and
That is what he's saying, actually.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so the song is called "Ow Corner," but AO is also his initials, Alexander Oska. And then, like it's this big epic song, and it's like I don't know if it was like specifically written for him or what. Like maybe it was, or if it's just some song that was just coincidentally had his initials and I don't know, but it's just fucking awesome, epic entrance music, and God, I use that as like. I use that like going out for runs, anytime I needed a little bit of motivation. Holy shit, that song did the trick back when I was younger.
I love that. You know, one of the things that I'm trying to piece together in my mind, and I've mentioned this probably every episode, but there's a few things that I'm specifically looking at when I go through this footage. I'm looking for Michinoku Pro matches that have been lost to time, that have been forgotten about. You know, the Shinzaki versus Terry Boy match from 1993, Sasuke versus the Convict from 1995. This match isn't on that level, but I like just the historical piece of this match. I'm also looking for, when we talk about these multi-man matches, the differences between Hamada's Universal and their multi-man matches, Michinoku Pro and their multi-man matches, and then Toryumon and Dragon Gate, and just how that style has evolved over time. And then the other thing that I'm looking at is, 10-10-96, at least from a commercial point of view, is sort of the peak of Michinoku Pro. We've sort of hit this mark where this is as big as the promotion ever feels and as big as the promotion ever looks. And it's a pretty short run in the grand scheme of things, and I'm trying to figure out all of the different pieces, and this will come with the notes that we do and just going over this chronologically as to like, okay, why did this promotion sort of fall apart the way that it did? And I look at guys like Hoshikawa on this roster in particular, and I go like, okay, so what happens? Why don't they become stars in the way that Delphin does and that Togo does? What happens in the booking or whatever? And I think this match represents like an oh god, this could have been what Michinoku Pro really thrived on in 98 and 99, because they have this working relationship with Battle Arts. It's a bummer, at least to off the top of my head, just with what I've seen and what I know is coming. I don't think we get a ton of Luchares Alexander Otsuka. It's not like we get a ton of Danny Collins going forward. This is the only tour that Super Astro ever works, and they hit on something in this match that feels like it could have been the start of something new, in a really new and exciting style that Taka Michinoku was sort of doing on his own. This grappling intensive, but high intensity sort of in-ring style that feels like it could have been morphed into a way that brought more of the Battle Arts guys into the Michinoku style, but still let them do what they were doing. And it's kind of just this match. I mean, we'll see if we come across more things in the future, 97, 98, 99.
Is what you're envisioning almost like similar to what we've described that early 2019 Dragon Gate stuff? Dragon Gate stuff, yeah, with like Shun and UT and all those guys.
Yeah, and I think this had a chance of even being a heightened version of that, because, UT has a shoot background and Shun can hold his own on the map, but I kind of want to see what six-man tags with Otsuka on one side and Sasuke on the other side looks like, and what would have happened if we really would have blended those styles in a way that I don't really feel like any promotion has ever fully been able to do. And I think just given the landscape and the partnerships at the time, I think Michinoku was in the right place to do it, and it didn't necessarily get done. And that is a bit of a bummer. This match feels like a historical anomaly rather than something that I think could have been the beginning of something new. Elsewhere on the timeline, we go back to the Observer here, 9/23/96. Dave starts to lay out this 10-10 card. He says Michinoku Pro announced its 10-10 lineup from Tokyo Sumo Hall, which will be the biggest show in company history. The working idea is to headline doing a trios match with the best flyers in Japan of the 70s, 80s, and 90s together. Mil Mascaras, Tiger Mask Siyama, and Sasuke, provided Sasuke can return on that show. Their opponents haven't been named, but one of them will be Dynamite Kid, so it'll be the first time that Sayama and Kid, who revolutionized lighter weight wrestling in the early 80s, have been in the ring against each other since their final singles match in 1983. Dave also notes that Shinzaki versus Hayabusa will be happening. And then Dave notes this, which I thought was interesting. He says, plus Tiger Mask and Grand Nanawa versus Taka Michinoku and Shoichi Funaki, as well as Grand Hamada, Super Delphin, and Masato Yakushiji versus Dick Togo, Mins Teo, and Shiryu, with Hoshikawa versus Johnny Saint and other prelim action. Do we like this show better if we get a 2-on-2 tag with Taka and Funaki? and then a trios match with Hamada, Delphin, and Yakashiji versus Togo, Teo, and Shiryu instead of the big 10-man tag. Mike, I'll go to you first because you love Taka and Funaki so much.
Yeah, I think that like the fact that Dream Chasers were kind of the house tag team at this point. I mean, they would have been teaming for about 18 months at this point, and with that, just like not to spoil the rest of the These Days show, it's a pretty thin major show. I think that maybe you are forsaking that legendary match for two potentially excellent two legendary matches, and there is like the idea that that would provide a lot more to the show arguably than some of the undercard things to split it up there. I don't know what the magic would have been. You also have like the aspect of you have the original Kaintai trio with that into it, though. I don't know like so much like I don't like having Nanawa away from Delphin now. Like Taka and Tiger Mask, yes, that is an always-on combination.
Is it
Within those
Naniwa
two.
and Tiger first in the
Yeah.
tag? We're saying,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Nanawa and Tiger instead of former Delphin Core.
I think I'd take the switch. I think you risk losing some of the legendary appeal that the 10-man gave this. I think just the
Mhm.
idea of it, right? That the Michinoku Pro 10-man tag, this all-star, like I think that carries more weight. But I think it would have been a better, more balanced show. And if say like the 10-man's 32 minutes, so say you go a 15-minute match and a 17-minute match, you can have two, like if you let those two matches go all out, and then potentially you get two hot finishing stretches instead of having the one big finishing stretch that we did get. Like, it could be better, but I think I'd probably switch up the teams. I don't think I like that. I think maybe Naniwa and Delphin in the tag
Yeah.
versus
And then you put Tiger
Taka.
Mask in the trios match with Hamada and Yakashiji.
Yeah, I definitely want. Yeah, I think you definitely got to have Hamada in the trios, because I think you can, for as great as Gran Hamada was, I think he probably is. He's going to be better in a trios match, I think, than a 2-on-2 if he can go in there and just be dynamic in shorter bursts. Yakashiji probably is similar, but in a different way. In this, he probably has he can go and go and go because he's young, but he probably wasn't as developed and didn't have as much tools in his arsenal for a big card, big spotlight 2-on-2 tag match. I think the 6-man suits him well, and then Tiger Mask is not as experienced as the others, so yeah, I think having him and any weaknesses that he might have hidden in the 6-man might work well. And then Delphin and Aniwa with their presence together as a team, I think that alone can carry the 2-on-2. Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. Now I lay it out. If I was splitting the matches, those are the ways I'd split it up. But it's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing before now.
Yeah, and I think that would have given this card maybe a little bit more of an authentic Michinoku Pro feel, and I guess we can get into that. The only other timeline note I have is from the 9:30 Observer, in which Dave writes about FMW's major show of this tour was on 9/29 in Sapporo before 4850, which was Terry Funk's first match in Sapporo in many years, with the group's world champion Wing Kanemura still out of action with an injury. They had Oya versus Hayabusa, with the winner getting a shot at the title match, which Oya won. But the reason we bring this up is that after that match, Jinsei Shinzaki hit the ring and started praying to Hayabusa, which is a small angle to set up their match at 10:10 at Tokyo Sumo Hall. We talked about what Dave wrote about the advanced ticket sales before this show. And gentlemen, that leads us to 10/10/96. To this day, I think even more so than the barely legal tag, this is the thing that defines this promotion. This is the reason Michinoku Pro has the legacy that it does. I will say up top, I had never seen this show start to finish. I had watched the opening match before, Hoshikawa versus Saint, and I had obviously seen the 10-man tag. Everything else on this show was new. I'm, in so many ways, surprised by what I saw. I'll go to Alan on this first, just because, you're sort of the guy that I go to for stuff like this. in terms of the English speaking world of Japanese wrestling, I think especially pre New Japan boom. I mean, this has to be up there with the J Cup and just, I think, the general idea of Masawa versus Kobashi as your automatic gateway entry point into Japanese wrestling, right?
Yeah, because like with the All Japan stuff, there's no specific show. It's matches, like, and there was probably some comp tapes and stuff like that, but there was no like, oh, this is the show. But these days, along with Super J Cup, probably like um one of the All Japan women shows as well. I think like maybe like Big Egg Universe. Or something. Sorry, I'm really bad with the '90s All Japan women history. But yeah, like those are like the kind of singular shows that were touted and known about to someone like me who was discovering Japanese wrestling. So yeah, it absolutely was on one of my early purchases of Japanese wrestling DVDs from Outcast Video, as you guys saw last night when I sent you the photos. um, and yeah, that was I I remember watching it. I remember giving it to my friend and then watching it with him again. So I like watched it twice in the space of a week. Um, I remember distinctly the opening of the commercial DVD, which Mike, you can probably get into like the version we saw here and maybe describe that. But the version I had was like a commercial VHS, I guess. And it opens with a field, just like this field of long grass, just very nondescript field of long grass, and all of a sudden you start hear this like trad music playing, like dee 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 dee, and then Great Sasuke emerges from this long grass and stands up slowly and does a fighting pose as the music continues. It's like the start of shipping out to Boston, and he just stands there, and then all of a sudden the Michinoku Pro music kicks in, the old Great Sasuke music, which I had as my ringtone for an embarrassingly long amount of time. I can't do it, but yeah, the that kicks in, and then they do whatever cut they do, and it goes to the arena then. So I have no idea why this opened with Sasuke in a field, but it did, and then. Yeah, as we would then see on this extended version that we have that we're watching today, there was more stuff that I can describe as I have no idea why this happened. Occurred before the show.
Yeah.
Everything from snakes to the X-Files music. So yeah.
Everything. This is like the old Stefan's Weekend Update sketch from Saturday Night Live with Bill Hader. It had everything. It had snakes. It had an Inoki impersonator. It had the X-Files name. It all was there for us. And
it's so adds up that like
it's
of
part
all
of the charm.
the things that we know the Great Sasuke has an interest in, mid 90s peak X-Files, like
Tracks.
Of course.
Yes,
absolutely.
I mean, this is the man who wants to wrestle on the moon. Like, of course. Like, that had to be, like, an immensely formative TV show for him. Like, can you imagine, like, him getting the tapes, like, shipped in and him watching? Because, like, X-Files, there's no way X-Files was on, like, broadcast TV in Japan in 96. Like, there's a level of fandom that he had to have had. Like, is he going on, like, the message boards, like, going on mailing lists, talking about the X-Files?
Is he a Gillian Anderson stan? That is what I want to know.
Well, he probably had his, like, Japanese Jeff Lynch, but he was like, no, I don't want ECW Hardcore TV. Send me the new X-Files when you get a chance, please.
Yeah. But put it on SLP. We need to get as many episodes on these tapes as we can. And I guess, like, this is kind of a point where we can kind of talk about this. The version that we have here, there's some interesting things that there is something that we'll talk about during the Legends match about this version. But this, I believe, and I don't know when exactly it went up. This comes from Samurai TV, the version that we'll be making available for you. for everyone, and not
Is
to
it
be
is it
like,
modern Samurai TV, or is this like did it air on? Because I was trying to tell by the logo, and it's like it wasn't super. I don't think it's like the logo that they would have had at the time, but I also
no,
don't
no,
think it's current day.
So at the time,
it was
they would have.
Gaora filming in, because there was a Gaora desk.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
right. So what originally aired on TV was Ishikawa and
Mhm.
Osuka versus Ikeda and the future Mahabanyone, the Legends 6-man tag, and then in full, the 10-man and the main event. That is what Dave has under the 1013 Michinoku Pro TV review, which he has in the November 11th, 1996 Observer. So, I mean, yeah, there is a Gaora desk, but this is around the time that Samurai TV launches. The point
Right.
that I don't, Mike will be able to explain this better than I am. There's a commercial tape version of this that exists, which is the show in full, which is what the intro that Alan was describing with Great Sasuke and the shipping up to Boston ripoff. But the version
And
that we watched for the most part was a remastered, beautifully HD
yeah, it's
Samurai TV cut of this show. Now there's for the Legends match, and I know for the 10-man tag, because I watched these on YouTube. Those matches exist in full, but the Samurai TV version that we're going to link in the episode notes has some clipping throughout the show.
Not
yeah,
much on the 10-man, because that was when 32 minutes went up on the screen at the end of it. I was like, wow, that was long. And then I was like, they must have clipped. And then I looked at the time that it started. It was pretty much 32 minutes on my timer. So I was like, yeah, okay, not much clipped in that.
So, do we want to talk about the clips here, because that's kind of one of my rabbit holes, or do we want to hold off until the Legend match to talk about that?
The clips in terms of what they edited out of the matches, or the clips that they show of the Michinoku Pro footage during the intro?
Yeah, I want to talk about more intro stuff first, Mike, if that's okay.
I'll hold off on that. Yeah, but Case, as you were saying, this is my suspicions, and for those who don't know, I'm a former digital media preservationist working in archives. It's I've not been in the profession for the last 4 or 5 years, but I have a deep basis in digitizing and remastering footage, most specifically from tapes like this that this would have come from, to be quite honest, given Japan's video production. And Case, I have to say, and I know I mentioned this to y'all, but I don't think I have ever seen an HD transfer as nice as this one. And what I mean from that is whatever version of a master that Samurai had when they did this, because Alan, I think this is a later restoration, because the fact that the Samurai logo is put where there's the letterboxing on like the normal aspect ratio.
Yeah, you're right. That was.
And that's usually a tell of when this was digitized and remastered. I would guess that because of the file format and everything, this might have been something that happened during COVID, but I can't tell you that. But with the exception of the Dragon Gate Network version of Absolute Amente that you could actually see into the dugouts at Ariake Stadium, this is the best HD transfer I've ever seen. And nothing like really like compares to the quality of this when you look at this opening that they have on this show, and just like the crystal crisp image of Sasuke in Iwate training with a future Gamma, trying to get his sea legs back, and all of the footage with him.
The training footage was so cool.
Yes.
I'll run through this open. We get the J Crown injury recap, and Sasuke is in the hospital. We get that shot that Case discussed earlier with Sasuke in his hospital bed with the mask hanging off of equipment. We get his doctor, who is going through the skull fractures with about no exaggeration 20 x-rays of Sasuke's skull, which is really kind of interesting and fun to see. And that's the kind of thing that Michinoku Pro does in 1996 that we don't really get nowadays. And then he goes to Jinsei Shinzaki and Tokushima, interrupting his pilgrimage. We get the press conference that Dave talks about in The Observer, where Sasuke is in his wheelchair. They lift his wheelchair up to a parapet so he can do his do like his announcement that he'll be back for 10-10. He is jogging throughout Tohoku with Tiger Mask 4. He is training
In
with
their
Gamma.
masks. just
their masks,
tremendous.
which is
Yeah.
in their masks and wearing like the most early 90s workout gear ever.
Yeah.
Like
Imagine just like, I don't know, like fixing your car on the side of the road and like that comes past you.
I mean, given the stories about the way that Sasuke lives in Iwate and Tohoku that have been told, I think that might have been kind of an occurrence that people kind of expected to see the weird guy in his mask.
I have to, by the way, I have to completely coastline a point you guys were strongly making on the last show about how people need to just watch from beginning to end what was it called? Sasuke in Lucha Paradise? Was that the
Yeah,
name
I
of
think
it?
so.
All the footage of Sasuke going around Mexico with Tiger Mask when they like buy bananas and then their bananas get stolen by caveman guy whose name I always forget. Subo
Yone
Genjin?
Genjin. Yeah.
Yone Genjin? Are they
Yeah.
the same Is there like two? I do not know Genjin lore. I know you guys have explained it on this show. It's one of those things that goes in one ear and out the other anytime it's been explained to me. Is there two of these guys and they
There's
look
two
the
of them.
same or? Okay.
There's two of them. There's Subo Genjin, who came from pro wrestling Fujiwara Gumi, and then Yone Genjin, who was a Universal guy who became Yone Genjin like in 1993.
All right, so they're not related or anything like that. Okay, well,
Not to my knowledge.
one of them steals the bananas. It's tremendous. They're like, they go and they join this like fitness class that Kendo is giving in like just like a house, and there's all these women, all these like housewives, like at 2 p.m. going to do this workout class with Kendo the luchador, and they're all like training. And then you see at the back of the class doing the jumping jacks with the women is like Yone Genjin, and it's just tremendous. He's like a little Where's Wally going around as they go on their adventures. My favorite thing in the whole comp thing is this like segment they do showing these Mexican dudes like climbing this giant like cliff thing and diving into the water, and these crowds would like watch and applaud because they were like doing like Olympic style dives, like just the most incredible, like picturesque diving. And Sasuke was watching, and they were intersplicing pictures of Sasuke or videos of Sasuke doing his dives, like the quebradas. And I feel like maybe there's like the name quebrada comes from something to do with this, or I feel like I heard that somewhere along the way, but seeing those clips are amazing. Seeing those guys, these little Mexican lads in their speedos climbing the fucking cliffs, like it's just like the most impressive thing I've seen in a long time. It's like insanely dangerous and scary, but they were doing it like it was nothing. That was cool. That whole thing is amazing. And yeah, Sasuke just out in the wild is always a treat, whether it's jogging, recovering from an injury, or going buying bananas.
It's so good. This footage is like the best parts of it. And like seeing Sasuke like get back into the ring, and he's doing his bridging, and
the neck bridges are the best thing on this entire show. And then I was so, and I don't want to come across like William Regal, who, as I've discussed, I've watched literal murderers wrestle pro wrestling matches, and they bother me less than watching William Regal does in 2026. There's something about his personality that I just find to be completely detestable. But Regal always talks about the importance of doing bridges, and watching Sasuke, who had fractured his skull probably 6 weeks before this footage was filmed, seeing him do these bridges and seeing how well he was doing them, far and away the coolest thing on this entire show.
Yeah, absolutely so. And you get more of Shinzaki and Sasuke, the full clip of Shinzaki at the F&W show in Sapporo praying for Hayabusa getting the match. And then we get into Sumo Hall, a whole lot of...
I just gotta say,
Alex.
before we get into Sumo Hall, the star of all these clips, unquestionably to me, as many great things as there is, the star of these clips is Shinsei Shinzaki's coif of hair.
Oh yeah, he looks real homeless.
That hair was spectacular. It was just so poofy.
And like he's showing up in a Canadian tuxedo to Sapporo. He looks awesome. He looks like that he should have been a member of the Disciples of Apocalypse.
But it was like almost like traditional, like a karate outfit, but like in ripped denim. and he was wearing like the sandals as well with it. It was pretty wild outfit. Yeah, yeah, cool. And okay, so um, I watched all this preview stuff last night. It was the last thing I did last night, and it was all so good. It got me so excited for watching the show. So I woke up this morning and like had the show to watch, and I was all excited because of the preview. But I also wanted to do. I decided because I had to get my PlayStation out so I could uh, check out that Outcast video DVD because it's the only thing I have that can play a DVD at the moment. So I had the PlayStation out, and I decided, you know what I'm going to do before the show? I'm gonna bust out Fire Pro, and I know I recently downloaded a Hayabusa. Let me get a Jinsei Shinzaki, and I'm gonna do a little Hayabusa versus Jinsei Shinzaki before I watch the show. And the Jinsei Shinzaki I downloaded, and I didn't even notice this when I was doing it, but he had 4 alternate tires, and one of them is this Canadian tuxedo with hair deal that he was wearing here. So very, very big credit to whoever put in the time and effort to make that.
That's incredible.
That rules. The pre-show stuff is we see the announcer desk and they're kind of running through the shows until we get lights going out. The great Sasuke's favorite TV show's theme music starts playing, the X-Files themes. And then we get the kind of traditional in-ring preview that you get on most major wrestling shows. And that brings out Wellington Wilkins Jr. and Yone Genjin dressed up as a Japanese businessman as a comedy bit. They throw their T-shirts, and that brings out a new person. Jingle Bells plays, and it's Santa Claus. And what Santa Claus brings as a present for Wellington Wilkins Jr. is a giant yellow snake out of a box that freaks out manager Yone Genjin. And that's how they kick off their biggest show in history, is with Santa Claus and a giant snake.
Well, I have 2 things to note about Santa Claus here. One, as much credit as we're giving Michinoku Pro, a little sloppy here, a little sloppy shop, because they spoiled Santa Claus here in this production. Because when they were running through the show, like at the desk beforehand, and they were showing clips from before the show, like I know people arriving and stuff like this. They were showing guys training in the ring, and there was someone standing there in a Santa Claus outfit in the corner.
Oh, I
with
didn't
like
notice that.
beard and everything off. There's someone just, you can't see who it is, but they're just standing there in a Santa Claus outfit as like guys are like doing rolls and stuff.
That's so cool.
And also, Mike, you went way too fast over the presentation of this gift from Santa Claus, because it's a big box. It's a big wrapped up Christmas present box. They unwrap it. It is then underneath a box of specialty brandy that like, oh, someone's getting a gift of some fine brandy here. The box of brandy still has the shipping label on it. So and that is the side that they're pointing the camera. You're seeing this full shipping thing, barcode and all. It's like, come on, guys. So let's rip the shipping label. But I think they literally just picked up a random box because it wasn't even brandy. It was just a snake. So yeah, I think they just picked up whatever random box they could find in Sumo Hall and wrapped it up and then put a snake in it.
It's a show that I mentioned this earlier. It feels shockingly inauthentic to the Michinoku Pro experience. Just going with all of this footage, this show feels completely different, with the exception of this opening segment and the Genjin Wilkins stuff, which unfortunately is just embedded in the DNA of Michinoku Pro. And this does feel like the promotion that we've now been watching years and years of footage of.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. And from there, we go into the first match of the show. It is a European rules match with our main man, the person bringing strong style to Michinoku Pro, Nahiro Hoshikawa, against, I think at this time that was announced, retiring supposed English wrestling legend Johnny Saint.
Here's a great trivia question at your next Joe Gagney, if you're listening, or next person hosting a wrestling trivia contest, maybe in Victoria's Bar and Grill or whatever that place in Chicago you got their cases.
Oh, I don't believe the squared circle has been open for 10 years now, but I'll hit Tara
squared
up to see if
circle.
she wants to host some Johnny Saint trivia.
She should have called it Victoria's Bar and Grill. I think that works.
Spider logo, Victoria. It's bar and grill around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The trivia question. Johnny Saint wrestled one match in his career in Tokyo. Who was his corner man? And see who can get the answer to that, and see how long it takes before someone says, that would be Osaka 06 member Gamma. Naturally,
two men that have such a very similar approach
Gamma
to their
was doing
in-ring style.
He was doing a lot of running back and forth up that aisle. Of credit to him, an unsung hero of this show. Didn't even get a dark match out of it. That I know of. There weren't any dark matches, were there, Mike?
I've never seen one listed.
Yeah. So
No, the only thing that this was listed as the first match on the show.
yeah. So he was busy back. He was cornering everyone, even kind high DX. Normally, like if you're like the rookie cornering faces, you're not going to corner like the heels as well. But yeah, he was doing it all.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a Yoshihito Sugimoto match make tape for us yet so far.
No, I don't know if we get one, because I think he defects in early 97. Yeah, he's not around Michinoku Pro that long, I don't think.
Where does he defect to before
I think Big Japan.
Really?
That would be news to me. Really?
Oh, hold on. I might be wrong. I thought for sure he spent some time in Big Japan. As I go to the old Gamma cage match, a place that I've spent so many hours over the years. No, I'm completely wrong. He's here in 97, 98, but he only wrestles. He's got 8 matches on record in 97. One of which, okay, he's got 2 that might air in early 97, and then 98, only 1 match in Sendai, and I highly doubt we get Seno versus Sugimoto in a 10-minute draw. That just seems like something that wouldn't make TV. So Mike, we'll know real soon if we get any Gamma, because from the matches that Cage Match has listed, only 2 of them could possibly make tape, and they would be in early 97. So we'll see.
Yeah, it just seems like to me, at least, that he is someone that is now just like ever present on footage that we just never see in that kind of way. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting that they should have other trainees at this time, but it's always Sugimoto around with that. I hate Johnny Saint. I think that his style of I just want to get this out, and then y'all could be fair to this match. I think his style of Lancashire style is like the most like exhibition-y, and not to bring up this guy once again, what William Regal had to kind of say about Zack Sabre Jr.'s wrestling ring set in 2014.
You can't say that, Mike.
Hey, open the voice gate looking for a new co-host. If anybody wants to do a thing, my line.
Not in like that like exact phrase and language.
Put Mike Spears back in Texas for a little bit. This guy changes. Let me tell you.
Does anything that Johnny Saint does look like it does any sort of pain or like anything to put someone in like in a better position for like winning a match? No, it's just him just floofing around. Like I'm
happy Pride, everyone.
Yeah, he's sort of dancing around the ring. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
There's a lot of people in Ireland, I'd say, giving out about people floofing around this weekend in some backwards parts of Ireland.
I don't know.
Here's what I'll bail you out, Mike.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, please.
I'd like to keep doing the show with you. I will say, although we talked about in the last episode how this is the single most consequential match in the history of Michinoku Pro, as this match literally, you can draw dots between this match happening and Johnny Saint becoming the GM of NXT UK. Johnny Saint is not a top tier World of Sport worker. I really like this.
Not at all.
I really like this style, and I will say that I really like the Johnny Saint Chikara stuff that we have. But when you go back and watch the footage from joint promotions, I'm immediately drawn to John Cortez, Steve Gray, Zoltan Bosic is a guy who I've pimped for years now, the Hungarian wrestler who I think is phenomenal. Those guys are all,
And
Jim Breaks, obviously.
The best
The-
Johnny Saint stuff is when those guys are like beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, exactly. And so those guys are all leaps and bounds better than Saint. And then the only Saint footage that I really like is when he's in the ring with Claudio and Danielson and occasionally Quackenbush. So he is, God, I'm sure there's other examples of this throughout wrestling. I can't think of one right now, but it's funny the way that Go ahead.
You know what's an example of it? I feel like, and I'm just going to get everyone mad at me. I feel like that when Negro Navarro's Maestro stuff was really pimped in 2018 to 2021, it was exactly this kind of stuff where it is exhibition and not wrestling to, as a competitive sport. It's look at what all we can do without actually, doing wrestling to me.
Yeah, I mean, Saint looks 20 years younger and moves at twice the speed that 2019 Negro Navarro did, which is really saying something because Saint looks old and slow here. But I completely see your point here. The point that I was going to make was, and I can't think of another example of this, but Saint has become the poster child for the world of sports style, but he's not. He shouldn't be. He just happened to have this weird level of visibility that has granted him some level of credence to just sort of speak for the style, but he's not one of the upper tier workers, and this isn't one of the upper tier matches. This is a very pedestrian sort of undercard. I mean, it's an undercard match to Michinoku Pro, but it's an undercard style joint promotions match as well. Whereas the high end stuff, and it's been years since I've revisited it. I'd like to hear real soon, but the high end stuff from that time period and that promotion, I'm a huge fan of. I really, really like it, but I'm never going like, oh yes, World of Sport, Johnny Saint's promotion. That's where, Johnny Saint was really, shining bright. That's just never how I feel about it.
Yeah, like John Cortez, I feel like is the person, one of the people to look to for that, not Johnny Saint. Yeah, absolutely. But Hoshikawa was great in this. I think that Hoshikawa getting able to kind of, and in some ways, be a bit of a meat boy, throwing him around when he would get thrown around, actually added the interesting element to this match that Johnny Saint does not offer to me.
Yeah, Hoshikawa does a good job of selling sort of confusion and being thrown off by Saint, which is kind of what he needs to do in his role here. Like it's not a showcase match for him. If he looks good, it's kind of a bonus. And poor Johnny Saint, one of the things that I had forgotten about the show, but as soon as it happens, I was like, oh yeah, this is something I do remember from the show, is Johnny Saint falling when he tries to jump into the ring. Just shortly before the finish as well, he was on the outside, on the apron, and he just tried to do like a little vault over the ropes, and he falls in a really weird way, which is kind of sad and pathetic, and the crowd sort of laugh, but he kind of shakes it off and they recover and they go into the finishing sequence, and ends on a kind of not great note, but he wasn't the most sad and pathetic looking old man that we'd see on this show.
Not the last person that will have issues with vaulting into the ring. That's for sure.
Yeah, I had forgotten that. I when I saw this, I was like, I remember that, but we get it again later, and did not remember it happening again.
No, for sure. Our only title match on the show was next, as Pro Wrestling America's heavyweight title was defended by Wellington Wilkins Jr. versus a younger Lenny Lane. And was it Eddie Sharkey as the referee here? Like they brought in someone flew in from Minnesota to be our referee there. The finish in the first match was a suplex pinfall for Saint in the fourth round for that one, just to have that on record.
Guys, am I completely crazy here? Am I out to lunch? But yeah, we're amongst friends. Tell me if I'm just completely off the reservation. But was Lenny Lane actually good here?
Boy, that's a tough question to answer.
He hit a nice lariat, hit a nice flying clothesline.
This, by the way, Alan now sounds like the way that diva stands are talking about Naomi, where they're like, "Look at this lariat she threw." She's like, "Go off, queen." What happened to Alan?
Hey, the pile driver reversal that they did, where they flipped back that I've seen that go horribly wrong many a time. It went so good here with these two. The superplex. Lenny Lane takes a superplex and
I'm talking
ends
to
up
like a
on the
Sol Ruka stand all of a sudden.
he ended up in the other corner of the ring. Just fantastic. But he still owes Chris Jericho that Loverboy tape, so I can never fully forgive him until he pays back that debt.
I, you know, it's just nice to have a Wilkins match that isn't against Yone Ginjin. So
Sure.
in that sense, it's better than what I'm used to from Wilkins. I will admit, as I crawled onto my couch to watch those days, or I'm sorry, these days. This is the show. Those days, I did it again. Son of a bitch.
You were
You know,
first.
was I watching this match? Yes. Was I engrossed in the movements of Lenny Lane in the same way that you were? I cannot say I was, but that might be a me thing more than it is a you thing.
I was like, look, people have they've heard me talk about a lot of things that I'll talk about on this show and make points that I've probably made before. Nobody has ever heard me discuss in detail the work of Lenny Lane, so this is going to be the show that I do it. So I put everything down. I had phone away, laptop away. I had pen and notepad in hand. You think I just pulled up all those moves off the top of my head? No, they're written down in cursive handwriting on a notepad. And yeah, I was locked into the clips we had of Lenny Lane versus Wellington Wilkins. I think I want the full version now. I need to go bust out my Outcast video DVD and see if I can get more of it from the full version. But did you guys note the referee here? I think
Yes.
he flew in a ref from the old PWA, some Minnesota guy probably.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if it was Eddie Sharkey or something. The ref who had full on WEC instructions before the bell, like making sure that doing my favorite thing, which is the hand into the fist, saying no closed fist, with all of that. For me, I thought this was just like a bunch of punch and kick, to be honest. Wilkins, he is like, I feel about Wellington.
I thought there was hot moves here.
I think Alan wants a different match.
Yeah.
Are you confusing this with the 10-man later on in the show? I'm lost.
I'm telling you, you're gonna see like A plus superplex. You're gonna see a couple of nice pile drivers, and you're gonna see some meaty lariats.
This is how I would describe Taka Michinoku on this show. I think you watched it out of order, baby. Good Lord.
So yeah, Alan, I know that like we have since the urine cases Eddie Guerrero episode, we've been in a pursuit of fundamentals. But buddy, I think we need to pull you back from the ledge a little bit.
Fair. I will cancel the Lenny Lane comp that I've requested someone to make me.
Oh, but not that Tom Green
good
was so
helmet,
disappointed.
good helmet. It's okay. No need. I'm good.
I mean, not that Tom Green's gonna be so disappointed that no one's talking about Lenny Lane here. But Case, you brought up that we didn't really have Yone Genjin in this match. That wasn't the case in the post match. He was allegedly Lenny Lane's manager at ringside throughout this, and then he does the thing with the belt ceremony where he wants to put the belt on Wilkins. Instead, he kicks him and he starts attacking him with an old school briefcase and doing some like the real like just right over the head. Like this briefcase, I want to find out this model of briefcase because Genjin was not being soft with this. He was decking him with briefcase shots until Wilkins shrugged them all off and stuck him with a powerbomb.
I don't need to see these two interact ever again, and I know we're going to see a lot more of these two interacting. So I guess to complete the Michinoku Pro experience, I'm glad they were on this show, but I don't need more of this.
I said earlier. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, buddy, you go.
I know I said earlier that I didn't want to go down the Dragon Gate is bad now tangent. But can I pitch a storyline that might turn Dragon Gate around? And if we were to do it quickly, we might even get a big Kobe World House out of it. But
I'm desperate for this promotion to turn around, so please go ahead.
Can I offer you a greater power storyline, a higher power storyline in the Jiro Shimbashi Corporation? And turns out to be Yone Genjin in his suit gimmick with his briefcase. as like the head of the whole deal there with Jungle Kiona and all the others who have partaken. Yeah, I think that could work.
Boy, if we're pitching Jiro Shimbashi angles to turn this company around, then we might be done with Open the Voice Gate here pretty soon.
We might be full-time historical at this point.
That is not what I wanted to hear. I was hoping a name like Yamato, Jackie Kabe was going to come into the mix, but okay, all right, hey, maybe. I mean, they can't be worse than they already are, so I'm open-minded, I guess.
Is Wellington Wilkins Jr. still alive? We could bring him back into the mix.
I believe he is still alive.
He is still alive. He hasn't wrestled in 23 years. Yone Genjin hasn't wrestled since before COVID.
Madoka Kakuta retains the Dream Gate again, and then Wellington Wilkins Jr. marches down and sizes him up chest to chest.
But it has to be Wilkins in like his gear from 1996, the pants over his waist and the do-rag. It has to be that.
Oh, yeah. Once Summer Adventure Tag League is done, we'll have that to look forward to.
Well, and it makes sense because they refused to book Kakuta against a lightweight. So, of course, just give him another heavyweight stiff who he doesn't have chemistry with. This is right in line with what they've been doing.
How many tickets would this sell for the replacement of Dangerous Gate? That's right. Tokyo Infinity Hectopascal 2026.
Another half-full building for Dragon Gate. Can't wait.
Jeez. Oh, man.
Remember how good Dragon Gate was in January of this year? We were like, this year's going to be like Shimizu's back. This year's going to be incredible. And it fell apart so violently and so quickly. And now it scares me because like there was a show in Osaka today that Jay posted nothing on Blue Sky. I didn't hear from the person that I normally hear from during an Osaka show. There's nothing in the Discord on the Dragon Gate channel about it. It's like the show didn't happen and it was Shun's last show in Osaka.
I have not seen a single report from Osaka today.
Haven't seen a single thing about it.
I've seen more about Jackie Kamei making it to the UK.
Yes.
Which good for him.
That'll be a good match, or it would be a good match if it was like wrestling in front of a crowd that wasn't British wrestling fans. But yeah, Jackie Kamei versus Robbie X is like, God, two of the just functionally like most impressive wrestlers in the world at the moment. So that would be in a better scenario. That'd be really good. But what was I gonna say? With Dragon Gate, oh yeah, you guys always go back to January. But like December was what a month they had in December. The finals of King of Gate, the Kakuta Valletta Korakuen match, which was really good and probably the last great thing Kakuta was involved in, and the end of year stuff they did with Triangle Gate. Remember those Triangle Gate matches at the end of the year, and on back-to-back shows? Like, God, I was so fired up about like just wrestling in general. Those Dragon Gate matches and like Miyahara versus Anzai ended 2025. I was so excited about wrestling. I was like, oh, here we go, pro wrestling, this rocks. And now we've got like the Triangle Gate scene is they're drinking buddies that are retiring. Anyway,
I've got a 2026 Noah match queued up for after the show that I'm kind of excited about, and that's the first time I've said that about Noah since maybe February or March. So we are in dark times.
Did Ada's like just complete this transit? This tangent. Did Ada's Homecoming GHC Junior one ever make tape?
I think it did because I think people talked about it being really good. It was on my list of things that I wanted to watch. But
is Ada the junior champ?
Yeah, he just won it at his hometown show for his 15th anniversary. He's defending against Hayata, I think.
Jesus Christ!
No, it's not.
Few wrestlers that turned me off more.
Hey, and just to further frustrate,
name, I see those all caps and I'm just like,
Case, just to further frustrate you, the main event at Umeda Hall, which I'm seeing a photo of, and it looks pretty jam-packed actually. Hamari gets pinned by Ryoya Tanaka.
Oh, you know what's funny? As we're talking about this, I just got a massive DM from the guy that I know that goes to the Osaka shows with a huge write-up. So he wrote so much that I can't read it on the air. But the Asia show would have hit Wrestle Universe. That was the 620 show. The match that I'm going to watch, because I heard good things about it, is from the 615 Korakuen show. Chris Brooks, Luis Monte, and Zack Sabre Jr. versus Archie Cole, Kaito Kiyomiya, and Titus Alexander.
That was the Monday Magic,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also on that
that's
show, Daisuke Sekimoto versus Shuji Ishikawa in a GHC Hardcore Openweight title match.
yeah. I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, that boy. I mean, at one
I think
point that was a 5-star match that they had in 2015. I'm gonna have to circle back to that one too.
yeah, Jesus. And now for the global hardcore title, they might like do a splash off a ladder. But the um, the Wrestling Universe might be worth having a sub then, because they've got Ueno versus Shinya Aoki tomorrow morning in Korakuen Hall, which feels like the type of match which
I'm
like
kind of
has a
into.
really high ceiling that like you could totally see it going away where it just clicks and the crowd get into it, and it's one of those
Mhm.
matches where it gets like match of the year buzz from like the fans of those guys and DDT fans, and like I don't know, like it could get picked up on like the Segunda Caída radar, and it's like the modern like Dick Togo versus Antonio Honda. It probably won't be now, but I'm just fascinated by it because I've seen those guys do great work with each other in the past, and I think it's just Aoki works well with like the DDT pretty boys and just like beating the
Yeah,
crap out of them.
absolutely.
So
I thought Aoki versus T-Hawk last year was like one of the most unheralded great matches of the year. Like he can do it if the right person, and it's its own unique special thing. Like I'm kind of into him and Ueno, but I'm more into Ueno than I think a lot of people are.
do you guys ever see Aoki versus Chihiro Hashimoto from Cork and DDT like 2 years ago, maybe?
No.
Best intergender match I've ever seen.
Oh,
Because
I
like
believe it with those
the
two.
whole reason why intergender usually sucks is because like it's tough to suspend your disbelief for
Okay, Alan getting canceled now about a half hour after Mike did. Good to know.
Come on, we're still doing that.
No,
But yeah,
well,
like
of course, of course, a 5'1" woman could beat Eddie Kingston's ass. How could you not suspend your disbelief for that?
but Chihiro Hashimoto moving around like Brock Lesnar as she does, with her legit background and having like a significant size advantage over little skinny Shinya Aoki, who also, in spite of being a little skinny guy, also like he can murder anyone at the drop of a hat. It- Great dynamic, and Jesus Christ, they had a hell of a match together. I know people who watched it love that one, so that's one from. I know like, no one likes to go back and watch wrestling from like 2 years ago, but it is one worth going and tracking down if people have never seen it.
Good, that wasn't on my radar at all. So that's good to know.
All right, there's our modern day wrestling therapy out of the way. Let's
see.
go back.
Noah's bad. Dragon Gate's bad. DDT has us excited about Shinya Aoki. That is the state of Japanese wrestling.
Well, something that might put us into a good mood from the show, at least put me kind of into a good mood on this show, is the Battle Arts offer tag match: Alexander Otsuka versus Yuki Ishikawa and Alexander Otsuka teaming with Yuki Ishikawa versus Daisuke Ikeda and Satoshi Yoneyama, who people nowadays better know as Muhammad Yone.
What a delightful surprise that was to click on his
Yeah.
cage match, not knowing who that was, and to see that it was Muhammad Yone. That made
Oh,
my
really?
day.
You didn't know?
The name wasn't clicking with me. I was like, God, that guy looks kind of familiar. Oh, it's Muhammad Yone. That's why. Okay, that's awesome.
I'm surprised you thought he looked familiar, because like me knowing who it was like, how is this the same person?
No, he's
looks-
got a very distinct face. I was like, God,
Yeah.
but he had yellow gear on, so I was like, I know that's not Kakahara. Who is that? Oh my God, it's Muhammad Yone. Okay.
Yeah. Yone he wasn't like he was still young. He was one of their sort of rising guys, but like he wasn't one of the best battle arts guys, but he hung his own, and he was like Ishikawa's protege, I guess. So like that's probably why he was chosen for this match. But I completely forgot this match was on the show until literally cut to it as I was watching it, and I was like, oh, okay. But I was also, once I saw it, I was like, I don't remember this being particularly great, because alongside or in around the same period as I was watching all the Michinoku Pro for the first time, I was also loving battle arts. I got the big battle arts comp from IVP videos and watched through all that stuff, and I think battle arts works better in a smaller room, the battle arts style. So I think it kind of loses some of its excitement in like Sumo Hall. So like if you wanted me to like recommend battle arts matches to people, I'd be recommending a lot more stuff before I'd get to this. Atsuka versus Daisuke Okada, 1997, Cork, I think November. That's the Battle Arts match to me. But the that said, like the work in this was, and some of it's cut, but it it's very good, very solid. There's a couple of real good urgent sequences of guys like looking for finishes and people breaking them up, and that plays into the actual finish where Ishikawa locks in a choke, and Ikeda, I think, goes to break it up, and Atsuka just bull rushes him and like picks him up like Takashi Sugiura and like forces him back into the corner. Really cool finish to it. And the crowd were very quiet for most of this match, but they popped for the finish, which is good. And the other thing I really liked about it was how Ishikawa sold the match at the end. He really like celebrated like it was like a meaningful win, and like he was so happy to have gotten the submission. Yeah, more of that. I'm always for wrestlers putting over whatever the situation is, whether it's like defeat or victory or whatever it might be. Just to put it over and make it seem like it's important to you. I appreciate that, because if you treat it as important, then I'll treat it as important. And Ishikawa treated getting this win in Sumo Hall like it was a big deal. So fair play to him for that. Did I have another thing? Yeah, no, I think that was everything I really had about that match.
I like the dynamics of it, where it was clear that they were going after Yone. He's the weakest guy in this match, and I thought, I enjoy this style, I think maybe more than people realize, but I'm not always the highest on Yuki Ishikawa compared to the way that some other people think of him. But I thought Ishikawa specifically was really great in this match, which was nice to see.
Yeah, the dynamic between the four, I think, really made this kind of special. I like that like the first aspect of the match was that Ikeda and Yone were focusing on Otsuka, and Ishikawa was trying to get himself in and trying to kind of help his teammate in that manner. And then as soon as Ishikawa kind of is getting more into the match, the babyface side, or at least the assumed babyface side, is able to kind of put away the young guy. And it just is for working this kind of style on this kind of show, I felt like having like this level of spice was kind of needed. And I feel like it's more in the fabric of what Michinoku Pro was for its like first 3 years, because of the relationships they had with PWFG and Battle Arts, and I mean the fact that Funaki came over from those groups, that like there is like, in the way that there is that thread there between these two groups, and it kind of made sense and was appreciated to have this kind of match on this show, more so than the other kind of additional non-Michinoku Pro feeling matches.
Yeah, very much so.
And then we get to the Legends Trios match. On one side, it's Mil Mascaras, the original Tiger, Masatoru Sayama, and the Great Sasuke versus Dos Caras, Dynamite Kid, Thomas Billington, and Kuniaki Kobayashi. And guys, before we get into the match, itself,
Thomas Billington, did he join the York Foundation or something?
I was just going off of memory, it just going through all their names in that kind of way. When I already did Tiger Masatoru Sayama, it felt only right for me to do that.
Alexandra York liked her men to sort of present in a certain way, very clean cut. It wasn't exactly how Tommy was presenting here on this show.
No, not the case here. And here is a time I'm going to take you all on a little tangent ourselves. We talked about, as we started this show, the samurai version that will be made available for y'all, and contrasting that with the version that you had originally, Alan, from your tape trader, and how that one was from a different kind of commercial tape. And this one seems like that is either adapted from a different source or is from a master that commercial tape came off of. There is one big difference that I've noticed that I was asking your help a little bit for in this match. But before we get into that, I would like to ask you both a question. Did y'all notice any Kuniaki Kobayashi in this match?
He does a cool dive at one point.
Now that you say it, I remember seeing him on the ring apron at one point, and aside from that, he did. I forgot he was in. I remember forgetting that he was in the match, and then thinking nothing of it. Until you said it now.
So this was a leading question, Alan. Uh, there is on the version that we'll be supplying a burnt-in caption saying that due to agreements, Kuniaki Kobayashi will not be shown in this match. And
They Ricky Choshu'd him.
They Ricky Choshu'd him, at least on the Samurai version. And Alan, in case I spent most of the last 24 hours trying to figure out this kind of mystery, and the most that that we've been able to really kind of tell, or I've been able to kind of figure out, and some of this was help with Alan looking on his bootleg that he had, is that Samurai, for whatever reason, whenever they made this version, they did not have agreement from Kuniaki Kobayashi. This was probably before he passed away in 2024 when this got released. And if you notice in the opens, in the entrances, he has no entrance. He is basically on the apron the entire time, at least as of the footage that you see, and you only get to see a glimpse of him in the dive train. And it's just like an interesting kind of thing that apparently for whatever reason, in the way that these kinds of things operate, Alan, as you said, he did not give clearance, or his family did not give clearance for him to appear on this version that Samurai TV did.
That's wild. That is there? You'd think there'd just be like a mass clearance for you appeared on the show. We have the right. Like, do they have to go like down the list of like everyone who was like on the show and be like, "Hey, are you okay with this?" Or is it something where he has a certain copyright over his likeness that like other people don't have, that he is able to say like, "Hey, Samurai TV, just blanket thing, never show me on anything." Like, yeah, that's really, really interesting. I know Naoya Ogawa, there's something like that with him, and that's why all his stuff was on New Japan World for like the first day or two New Japan World launched, and then it all got taken down. The Choshu one is, I talked about it on my last show. If people didn't hear it, I did a show all about 1987 with Charles from Pro Wrestling Only and Wrestling Playlists, and the whole thing with Ricky Choshu, when he jumped from All Japan to New Japan, he was still contractually tied to All Japan, and Baba was basically putting a block on him appearing on New Japan's TV. And they had this one really big elimination match that they built to, where it was I forget the exact teams, but Inoki was on one side and Choshu was on the other, and big match, sumo hall, and people I guess were probably unsure how it was going to work with the fact that Choshu couldn't appear on TV, but this was going to be his first big match. And what they did is, it was so cool. They have this Inoki team, which is like Inoki and his pals, like Sakaguchi, Masa Saito, I think, and little, I always forget his name. The fella who was the leader of the Makai Club, the really short guy, Hoshino, Kantaro Hoshino.
Yeah.
So Inoki at the start of the match sends Hoshino back, and I was like, kind of shoos him off, and says something to him. And Dick Murdoch strolls out from backstage, and the crowd pops. And Inoki's like, "Yeah, no, we're making a swap. Murdoch in, Hoshino out." And all the Choshu team are furious. They're like, "What the fuck? You can't do this." And Choshu is particularly aggrieved. And they cut to commercial, and they come back from commercial, and Choshu and Murdoch are brawling and getting pulled away, and you don't see them making physical contact, but they're getting pulled away on the floor, and the count has started. Like the bell is rung, but nothing has happened because like these are the two guys. I guess they were deemed illegal men, but they're both outside, and they both get counted out. And Choshu like never actually like competes on the TV, but it all worked within the story of like the match and the overall story they were telling. Genius stuff.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Like that's such a smart way of working around that kind of limitation here. And I have searched Japanese fan blogs. I've searched just in general to kind of find this out, and I wonder, and this is just my own, just using therapy words, I feel like maybe this could have been something given Kobayashi's health issues and cancer, that maybe I thought he looked pretty okay, at least from the shots that we saw of, but maybe it could have been a thing where, I mean, his prime was 13 years before that, and as the Tiger Hunter, and maybe like after like the before like he got cancer with that, and maybe it could have been a little bit of a pride thing that would have said, and no, I don't want my footage to be shown in this because I'm not looking like how I was
Had he
before.
had he been sick at this point?
Yes,
I assumed
yes,
his illness was related. Okay, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
it,
that's right. He did. Yeah, yeah. Because I think I remember reading about. I think he actually had a lot of the same shit that I did. Uh, so yeah, that's wild. But yeah, like with Dynamite Kid out there, like I don't know, he didn't look
yeah,
too bad by comparison.
right,
If one
yeah,
person looked
and
sickly
mascara
in that match, it
slipping.
wasn't him.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Between like mascara slipping on his entrance and Dynamite, I mean, not being in any sort of shape to really have been wrestling on that show. I know later it turns out that he got a seizure happening after this match as he was traveling back to the UK.
Oh,
It's
Dynamite
just,
did he? Oh, geez, I never knew that.
yeah. So like this is a real kind of disastrous match, and it is very edited, at least on, I know that many versions of this match are completely kind of edited to kind of hell with it. It's just like at least for me, I guess I'll give my thoughts and turn it over to y'all. Seeing the brothers of Dos Caras and Mil Mascaras face off for the first time is kind of the one saving grace of this match, and that's only for like 10 seconds for me.
I think this match succeeded in one thing and one thing only, and that was being Great Sasuke Fantasy Camp, because that man was living the dream, getting to work with all his childhood heroes, I'm guessing, in this match. He was taking moves from everyone, mostly taking moves from everyone. But what was very interesting to me was in the closing video packages, a very short closing slow mo highlights at the end of the show. There's two clips from this match, and both of them are Great Sasuke on offense against legends. So I think he got what he wanted out of this. The bit of B-roll and to get to interact with his heroes, and get a big entrance where he comes out with a load of women holding his belts. And yeah, the match was what it was. The pageantry of like the entrances and everything were probably such Mascara slipping when he tried to get into the ring. The pageantry was something I was very impressed with. Just like the music of Sky High for Massacre is obviously a real cool deal whenever you hear that. The outfits that everyone had, like Sasuke coming out with that like mask thing that he had on his shoulder, which was really cool. It all just looked kind of quite grand. The Massacre is taking off one of his masks and having another underneath and throwing it to the crowd, getting a big pop, and then throwing his sombrero to the crowd. Just imagine if you caught that sombrero. What an incredible item to have in your possession, the sombrero of Mil Mascaras from these days. Like, God, if that whoever caught that, like if they like are still alive, they better have like pride in place in their home for that piece of wrestling history. But yeah, but then Dynamite Kid, the like opposite of pageantry, comes out and it's just like it's distracting how like undynamite Kid he looks. And like this is for me as someone who when I watched this, it would have been like more or less in the time period of me learning of like Dynamite Kid as, this great historic worker, considered one of the best, this legend, but I'm learning about him at the same time of knowing the end result and then seeing this match and seeing how he looked in this as a reminder of the end result. And it was I never got to just appreciate and live through Dynamite Kid as a um uh, without knowing the sad ending, so it's yeah, it's not a happy deal seeing him here. There's nothing about this. There's no like, oh, it's cool seeing him and Tiger Mask wrestling. No, it might have been cool for Great Sasuke. that's about it. There's nothing pleasurable about watching Dynamite Kid in this match.
Yeah, I watched the samurai version of this, and then I went to YouTube and I watched the other version of this, which if there's any clips in that, then it's very minimal. It seems like it's the full match, and it's actually not. It's not the train wreck that I was expecting when you watch the full version of it, except for when Dynamite's in the ring, and then it noticeably is so much worse. But it's another one of those matches, and this is the type of thing where, one of the conclusions I've come to through watching all of this footage is like, Sasuke has the reputation that he does. It's the rightful reputation of this guy's insane, this guy's a daredevil, this guy will put his body through anything. But when you watch it in chronological order and you watch it with the notes in the Observer of Sasuke's leg is messed up, Sasuke injured his shoulder, Sasuke fractured his skull, and then you see him take more and more punishment, this is Sasuke fantasy camp, but it's Sasuke trying to will a great match with 5 other guys that don't have the capacity to have a great match anymore. And the punishment that he takes is utterly remarkable. And the effort that he puts in is utterly remarkable. So when you factor that in with some fun Mascaras and Kara stuff, and, I think just some fun Kara stuff with whoever he was in the ring with, it's not essential viewing. It's not a very good match, but it is not entirely the train wreck that I thought it was going to be. I think if I had to choose between rewatching this or rewatching the main event, I would choose this because there's enough good here that I at least found it to be like, okay, for what it was, I was okay with this.
Have either of you guys watched much, like, I'd consider this late career Satoru Sayama?
No.
Not
Me
so much.
neither. Anything I have watched, I haven't really, like, it's gone in one ear out the other, so to speak. It's never really registered with me. Watching him here made me think, if this guy stayed in shape and stayed committed to like being a pro wrestler who's just career advanced in like a linear fashion, didn't go off doing the things he did with UWF and
the side
associating with
quests.
the people he associated with and becoming really, really large for his frame. It is, like, to me, one of the what ifs of wrestling history is this guy who had the level of skill that he had, which he exhibited in this match, as still having those I'm forgetting the term, but like the coordination, the skill, it was all still there. Like the reflexes were all still there. He was just, he probably wasn't going to be able to work like, a 22-minute singles match or anything. Like I doubt he had the gas tank. But like when he does like that spinny drop toe hold deal, like it looked so amazing. And a lot of the other stuff he did here just looked like he hadn't lost those things. That if he just stayed intent on keeping himself in shape and kept his head on straight and like worked with people instead of against people, and I'm sure he was right in some of like the decisions he made. He was probably very wrong in some of the decisions he made. I don't know. A lot of crazy politics. I'm sure everyone was at blame in 80s and 90s Japanese wrestling in one way or the other. But to steal a phrase like Case likes to use a lot is, I think if we saw like 100 versions of his career play out, I think we saw one of the worst versions.
Oh God, yeah.
So
well, because even in this match, it's almost like that Mick Jagger thing where like if you watch contemporary Rolling Stones footage, it's like, okay, that's an old man on stage, and then he'll do something you're like, oh my God, that's Mick Jagger. And there's the moments with Sayama where you're like, God damn, that's Satoru Sayama. Like, look at him move in this match with a bunch of other stiffs around him. Look at what he can do. So the Tiger Mask era of his career, I was just talking to somebody about this, the Tiger Mask era of his career is still a really big blind spot for me. I've seen very little original Tiger Mask. And so the late stage Sayama stuff, if I haven't come across it in Michinoku Pro, I haven't seen it, but he remains a huge historical curiosity for me. And I at some point I need to rifle through all of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much at the same point with Case. I thought that Sayama, outside of Sasuke, was the most competent person, at least of the version I saw. Like it did not seem like comparatively to the rest, that he was, degenerating at a rate that, yeah. And I mean, he had so many dang side quests and things that he kind of got into, that I think the Tiger Mask boom was just so big, and he became such like a presence that and I think we're going to see it in later years with Sasuke, that the amount of popularity that gets to your head at a certain point of time. I think we've seen this time and time again in pro wrestling. It allows you to indulge some of your more, how do I put this? Is it some of your more, I don't want to use self-indulgent, but some of your more just like self-centered kind of things. And I feel like a lot of my takeaway for Sayama, especially after the Tiger Mask era, was that it was an incredibly self-indulgent time period. I mean, he's still running stuff like the real pro wrestling stuff. Like, I mean, he's still kind of indulging in that and still has the audience to do so. And I think that it kind of changes who you are as a wrestler in a way. And I would like to see the history that he does, that someone's like, no, you're going to be Tiger Mask and you're going to stay Tiger Mask, like Liger, essentially. And what happens if he gets more of that kind of treatment?
Yeah,
He
very
was
much so.
born in 1957, so he was 39 here, which is actually older than I would have expected. Because normally when you do this, you look up a guy, and it's like, oh, he's only 32. Yeah, so he was already, like, he probably wasn't going to be an elite guy. Even if you get the best version of him throughout the 90s, he's
Yeah.
probably not going to be like one of the top guys in like the mid 2000s, like unless he has like a Tenaru level kind of arc. But
Oh,
yeah, but
absolutely.
I think his 90s could have looked well, his 80s could have looked a hell of a lot different. I know he has a couple of
Mhm.
really well regarded matches in like the UWF and all, but like, God, yeah, no, just there was a period there that we could have got so much more out of him.
And it's like very similar to Sasuke. I mean, how big of a
Yeah.
star he was in his early 20s, like
Same thing can
that.
be said for Ultimo. It's that
Right.
interesting. It's just that tree of junior heavyweights where that peak is so short, and they exist so largely in their post prime rather than their prime, that it really colors the way we think of them, often for the worse.
And
Yeah.
that's why a guy like Shima will do so well on our like greatest wrestler ever list, because we saw this was a guy who, for obviously had certain decisions and stuff in his career that we might want to unwind, but as a whole, like, that guy, he packed a lot into his time,
I know
So
it's 98 to 2018. It's a 20-year run where he's as consistent as you could ever ask for a style of that wrestler to be, and the high points are the high points, and he's utterly incredible. And the Ultimo run is 4 or 5 years, the Sasuke run is 4 or 5 years, the Sayama run is spread out, but I don't think anybody looks at Sayama as some guy of great longevity. But Shima and Mochi and Susumu, those are the reasons that we pimp those guys the way that they do, because it's 20 years or 25 years, or, we'll be talking about 30 years for Susumu here pretty soon.
yeah, they just do not get the credit they deserve for being able to do that. And yeah, it's a shame, because yeah, it's all those legends like Sayama and people like that, and they weren't able to do it for whatever the reasons were, health, bad decisions, ego. They weren't able to have that run. So I think I value it a lot. I value being able to stick around and just keep that output so high. Yeah, very, very impressive.
Mike,
Absolutely. No.
let's talk
Go ahead,
about that
guys.
10-man tag, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the finish of the Legends match, Dynamite out of nowhere pile drives Sasuke, then Dos Caras does a powerbomb to get the pin. Sasuke calls for Dos Caras mask. This is where we got the comedy Inoki figure showing up, and Case's main man, the Great Zebra, cutting a promo in there. But then
Stole
we get
Sasuke's ladies.
all of Sasuke's. I mean, all that we've seen of the Great Zebra, whenever he shows up, there's one thing we know is that he's incredibly wise, and the ladies love him. So
I
I'm
thought
glad.
he was I thought it was the convict when I saw him running out there with the two ladies under his arms. He's stealing. He's like, put this man in jail.
Yeah. The funny thing about the Zebra character, not to get too much into it, the Tiger Mask thing, in the Tiger Mask like original cartoon, it was supposed to be very obviously Giant Baba as this mask character. So that's just an aside for folks. But let's get into the thing that this show is known for, the 10-man tag. You have the full complement of Kaientai Deluxe, Dick Togo, Shiryu, Mins Teo, Taka Michinoku, and Shoichi Funaki versus Michinoku Pro Sekigun of Grand Hamada, Grand Nanawa, Masato Yakashiji, Super Delphin, and Tiger Mask 4 in 32 minutes of magic.
Alan, we'll go to you.
Okay. Obviously, this is great. This is historic. There's a couple of ways to approach this match. If you're just talking about it as bell to bell match, and giving it a star rating or putting it in a list of best matches, I talked earlier about how I think a match that happens 2 months later, I don't want to say laps it, but honestly, when I watched this today, it reinforced, and I really enjoyed it from minute 1 to minute 32. I really enjoyed everything I was watching, but the opinion I've held for like just under 20 years of this match being like the famous match but not as good, I didn't see anything that made me um think twice about that opinion. Nothing challenged that opinion for me. It was what I thought it was, basically. They put on a great showcase of what they are. This is an incredible advertisement of what they are, and it worked because, this led to people wanting to see these guys, wanting to learn more about these guys, check out other things. It's a reason got passed around and recommended, and was such a famous tape trader match. But in terms of the match itself, it is, I think, noticeably slower than some of the other things that these guys have done and do again with each other. I think it's definitely less heated. I thought this crowd was, and this was in terms of heat, this match was the peak. Like they were into a lot of, and reacted well to a lot of stuff in this match. But this was a dead crowd for pretty much this whole show, and really in the main event, we'll talk about that. But like, this was a dead crowd that if this was like a Noah show in 2026, we'd be like, ooh, that was a pretty dead crowd. But for 90s Japanese wrestling, this was a really dead crowd.
But think about what they had seen up to this point: a weird Johnny Saint match, a Battle Arts match, and what many would call a disaster of a trios match. It's why I was, again, having never seen the show from start to finish, it's why I think this show would have been so much better served to have an undercard tag match and then a straight trios match. And knowing what we know now, it's impossible to go back and live in that alternate universe, but it doesn't feel like this is the first Michinoku Pro match you get. It's the only Michinoku Pro match you get. Everything else is either adjacent or interpromotional. And I'm surprised that the crowd wasn't hotter for this, but also between the pre-match ceremonies,
they had a lot of ground to catch up on. Like, it had fallen, like they were working in the negative to start this match, and they had to claw. It was like a golfer going from pulling a round back from way over par to getting to par.
Because you not only have the three matches, but the pre-show stuff, the post-match angles. That's a lot of sitting around with stuff that isn't all that entertaining just to get to this point. And while it gets there in the end, it's also a pretty slow start to this match.
Yeah, it is, which I actually liked. Like, I liked there was a lot of like just good mat wrestling and stuff, and guys and I loved this. Felt like a Cybernetico at the start, where it's just guys like pairs going in, like one in, one out, where you don't see one single wrestler stay in the ring too long, and no pair stays in the ring too long. It's just constant substitutions on both sides, and you're seeing it starts with Togo and Yakashiji, which is, I think, the perfect way to start it, and they have a great sequence. But 20 seconds later they're out of there and the next guys are coming in, and you got almost that Cybernetico batting order going on there. And then it does settle down to a control segment for Kaientai DX, but it's kind of a control segment where they pass around like who's going to be the guy they're working over. Like they beat up Yakashiji for a while. Actually, no, I think they beat up. I forget which order it goes, but they beat up pretty much everyone except Super Delphin, I think, for a little
Right.
while, and then Super Delphin makes a big comeback, which is probably the way to do it. So it's an interesting structure, but you know, compared to say December 16th in Hakata Star Lanes, which is like molten hot crowd, like one of the hottest wrestling crowds, and it's almost like that crowd is just causing these guys. It's like the the crowd is giving them adrenaline as if they've all snorted about 8 lines of coke, and then they just wrestle accordingly. It is lightning pace. And not that there isn't like pacey parts to this match, because there is for sure. There's some fast sequences, some really good stuff, really well executed stuff, but it doesn't have that frantic energy that 12-16 and other Michinoku Pro tags do. It doesn't have the frantic heat that the Corkin match on the Battle Arts show has in January '97. Um, uh, but it does have kind of the element of these are our guys, look at them all. Everyone kind of gets to show off in a way that it serves as a really good display and showcase of all these guys from even before the match starts. All the individual entrances for the baby faces, and then the kind tight guys coming out to, again, that amazing team song, and they all march down in order. And as they were walking into the ring, I was like, I remembered instantly what it looked like. And I could, before each guy appeared, I saw Taka, and then I was like, I kind of, before the next guy came out, I knew what they were going to look like. It was like it all, like I was like, oh, here comes Dick Togo in his skull mask, and it's like, yeah, and just yeah, that entrance is so visually powerful. Them just marching down in single file, led by Taka. It's with the music playing. It's so cool. They all look a little bit different, but they're all in sync. Which is a great thing for a stable, that you know, you have them tied together, but they're not all they're not all generic guys that look the same. They all have an individual personality or distinct look to them. Um, so that ruled, and then just the individual introductions. That's a lost art in pro wrestling. That's something that like you'd never get like in an AW pay per view, because you know they're squeezing in so much. But just giving the time to have the five guys on each side of the ring and the ring announcer in the middle call them out name by name. They each step up to the plate and pump their fist or give a middle finger or shoot some trash talk over at the guy on the opposite side that they dislike, and spend the 2 minutes doing that. And it's so worth it. It adds so much. And I think doing that was probably a big thing to help the crowd kind of get back into, hey, we want to see some good pro wrestling, and they do. Like saying it's not like the crowd heat of 12-16 is like comparing. It's an impossible comparison, but it's a natural comparison here because it's essentially the same match with the same guys, more or less.
Well, I thought about it in the context of Dragon Gate. We think about, there's two really, really great trios matches. One that is a straight trios match, and one's a three-way trios match in May and June of 2007 in Corkin. And then there's a New Hazard Muscle Outlaws match at Kobe World 2007.
Yes.
But I think the three of us would immediately point our fingers, and if we had to rewatch one of those, we'd go, oh, we'd pick one of the two Corkin matches, because those crowds are so much hotter. It's in a smaller room. The style of wrestling it's I love it. It's not an insult by any means, but it's small room wrestling. And that Kobe match, if that match happens move for move in Corkin, we look at it as maybe the greatest Triangle Gate match of all time. But
and
it doesn't.
I know people who that Kobe World was their first time seeing a lot of those guys, and they were like blown away by, oh my god, these guys are. And like I had to be like, oh, go back and watch these matches they had at Cork.
Yeah, go back a month ago.
yeah. So,
Sure.
but like they did like the prestige of the big building, and like look, every wrestling fan's different, and it's not a judgment. Like some people would rather see this incredibly well produced, big arena, big production deal rather than um, a grainy video file of a match in a bowling alley in Fukuoka. Um, I get that. So this match might be for some people, this might be more their cup of tea. And you know, I think it's. I think the December match and the Battle Arts match in January, I think that might be for more someone who is like us and is super into it and knows the guys already. And it's like you want to see like, okay, what's the next level of this? But this serves as a great, hey, you want to see what Michinoku Pro is all about? Here you go. And God, some of the work throughout the match is just phenomenal. Like some of these, like it kind of shortchanges just to talk about, like, oh, they were in and out, then you get the next pair. Some of these like sequences with the guys would just be so good. Um, and yeah, it's I have other points to make, but I feel I should shut up now and let one of you guys
Oh, no, it's all good.
step in.
For me, I think of this match a little bit closer to 12/16/96 than you two do, only because I think that the way that they kind of base this match, like you were dead on and calling it almost like a cybernetico, the fact that the first 10 minutes is essentially a feeling out process that the babyface Saki Gun are getting more or less the upper hand on the Kaintai Deluxe guys. And you have this moment of like, if you've been watching the promotion, you're like, okay, when is Kaintai Deluxe going to take the heat? When are we going to start to see them like beating
The
them
double
down?
teams and the triple teams that we've been seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then it really first happens on the perfect person when they first start doing it. It's not Masato Yakashiji. They start on Nanawa. And I think
it was Nanawa. Yeah, you're right.
And I thought it was so brilliant that they went on Nanawa because during the introductions, during all that pre-match that Alan so eloquently described, the one person who drew my eye the entire time was Grand Nanawa trying to get his hands on Taka Michinoku and Shoichi Funaki. How furious he was, how committed he was, and he never really gets a full one-on-one with Taka in that opening going. But then it is the Dream Chasers that are the ones that start opening up the Kaintai Deluxe offense and the Kaintai Deluxe real control period. And I think that comparing that to 12/16/96, which I would say is a lot more of the prototypical match as you laid it out, it is so interesting to see that they went for that style of match. And I feel like that it was really effective doing that style of match. But it's absolutely not the match that, if you're looking for the epitome of where Lucha Rest was in 1996, it's not that. And I think, Alan, you raise a real valid point about like the fact that it's in Ryogoku and the fact that it's like the big lights on it that helps. And I mean, the fact that, now with 30 years of hindsight, this is the match that gets a lot of the, at least for the Kaintai Deluxe guys, this gets them on the way to get their WWF contracts or WCW contracts in Shiryu's case. Like, this is kind of the start of that. And it is, just for me, I thought that match format was so kind of fascinating to kind of sit with it for an hour or for half an hour and see how it kind of develops from there. And also, like, we have to acknowledge, this is such an enormous spot for Masato Yakashiji, given where he was in his career and the fact that, like, he, as a member of Sekigun, and really was not a part of any of the Kaintai Deluxe things, but he kind of gets played into this kind of situation when they rebook the card. And it, in a lot of ways, I feel like that he takes command of the moment as well as anyone else other than Menstejo, who does like the sudden whip DDT that I'm obsessed with it during the heat section. That was just tremendous stuff. And
can't believe you just stole my thunder. I was going to call it Menstejo the MVP of the match.
Oh my God, that's what I was going to ask, was who do you guys think was the MVP of the match?
Menstejo.
It was Teo. It was Teo for me. He was fucking awesome. And I told you guys to bank something earlier in the show. Menstejo, as they're like swapping in and out, Cybernetico style, one of the pairings that comes in, Menstejo, other guy, Tiger Mask. Immediately, Menstejo points right at him and then points at his arm, which is all covered up from getting sliced open in that fucking show in the mud they did a couple of weeks earlier. And then he did like the I'm gonna break your arm motion with his hands. so good. Menstejo, what a hero. And I'm going to make a big call, guys. Menstejo in this match hits, and I've seen them all: Buzz Sawyer, Rick Steiner, Randy Orton. You want to say him? Men's Teo hits the best whipping power slam
I have it in my
I've
notes.
ever seen
I
in my
have it in my
life
notes.
on Masato Yakashiji. I jumped off my couch. I reacted. I said when you guys when you guys called me today, I was like, oh geez, because Sarah's away, so I was like, oh god, I haven't actually talked to anyone in like a long time, like 20 hours. So I think the only time I opened my mouth was in the last 20 hours was to yell fuck or some kind of noise when Men's Teo hit that power slam. It was amazing. So yeah, Men's Teo was my MVP of the match. He was flawless. Every exchange he was in there for, he was flawless. He was basing for guys. He was dishing out awesome offense. He hit his miracle ecstasy bomb, the choke slam power bomb deal, which is so cool. He even did the little taunt before it, which became like a meme thing in like his later career. The guys in the like men's club Big Japan matches, guys would march around the ring doing that little taunt thing that he would do before that move. Yeah, he was Herculean in this one, but plenty of other good candidates too to pick from.
Teo's outstanding. I think Hamada is really, really good whenever he's in the ring. Taka, he's just otherworldly in this match. The best thing that Taka does here is Nanawa goes for his elbow drop off the middle rope where he kind of slides over from the corner and then, does his little crab motion. Yeah, he does the crab walk. And Taka drop kicks him off the middle rope. And it looks so violent. And it's the type of thing that Taka was doing every single time he wrestled in 1996. And it's why
it was a receipt for like a minute earlier. Nanawa took Taka's head off with a clothesline. Taka was giving someone a Jericho torture crab kind of deal, and he was completely exposed. And Nanawa took his head off with a lariat.
I love and this is the type of thing that it could so easily be stolen by somebody. And I don't know, pick your heel unit in wrestling now. I don't know who it would be. But the thing that Kai En Tai does where they just do the little double stomp train off the top rope where they don't make a big deal out of it. It's not a super flashy move, but they all just sort of leap off the top and basically fall onto their opponent and do some sort of knee drop or stomp.
They either do a double stomp or a knee drop. So I think in this match they all did double stomps.
They all did double stomps in this one. Yeah.
Except Funaki. Funaki did the knee drop. It's that kind of it's kind of an extinct move, that little knee drop that I always think, I don't know how guys do that without like breaking their ankle or their Achilles or something. It looks like something you can't physically do, but people have done it. Yeah, that feels like something the Death Riders should be doing. I mean, they're doing the Los Guerreros huddle, they're doing the Dragon Gate train spots in the corner. I feel like they should probably take a Kai En Tai DX move.
Yeah, because just real
generation.
Quick,
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, okay, save that point because I want to hear whatever you're about to say. I'm very intrigued by that, but I think, and we all, we all love Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin on this show, but I think the philosophy has changed of what partnership looks like in wrestling, where now it's kind of become this Motor City Machine Guns thing where partnership and chemistry looks like 9 back-to-back moves that all lead to something, but I don't really see the cohesion in it. It's just two guys that happen to be on the same page doing a bunch of stuff. Whereas I think the little stomp train, especially if you're in a multi-man match, that to me, that's like, okay, that's a team right there. They're working together. They're all getting involved. I like the way that looks way more.
Yeah, early. It's funny you mentioned Alex Shelley right after what I was going to say. Early Generation Next did a bunch of those Michinoku Pro moves, and obnoxious 19-year-old, not obnoxious, that's not the word, annoying 19-year-old Alan Forel on MSN Instant Messenger or AOL Instant Messenger, I can't remember which it was, annoying poor Alex Shelley username XFreeZuckaX, and telling him that I thought they were doing a lot of Kai En Tai DX stuff, and him responding, good eye, and that just making my day.
I feel like part of this really is people aren't as cool as Kaintai Deluxe are.
They're incredible. They're
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. There's a reason they have the legacy that they do. I mean, it obviously helps that they have the shine they had in North America. And so even if that's what people know Taka Michinoku from, like, Taka's undeniably incredibly cool. And Dick Togo is, there's a reason I think that for us, I mean, you and the three of us don't really watch modern New Japan hardly at all anymore, but Dick Togo in his current iteration sucks. He's awful. But
I watch modern New Japan. I don't watch modern Dick Togo because I skip the shit out of anything.
fair.
House of Torture.
But if it was anybody else doing that, I think I would have gone on many monologues about how this guy's the worst thing to ever happen to wrestling. And I'm like, it's Dick Togo. Like, you know.
He gets a pass.
He gets a pass forever.
He has earned a pass forever. Yeah. Did you see him and Sonata doing like Michinoku Pro spots in
Alan,
CMLL?
I promise you, I did not see Dick Togo and Sonata do anything. I promise you.
They worked CMLL last weekend.
CMLL 2026, not a draw for me. Not over in this house.
I just saw this one clip. They did the and it was on Dynamite as well. The last week's Dynamite main event, they did it to MJF. Like the Super Delphin water pump on the arm spot. So Sonata and Dick Togo, apparently they weren't allowed in CMLL do all like the House of Torture run-in stuff. Like that was like, I guess and if you think about it, like you don't see a lot of that kind of run-in stuff in CMLL. So that was like not allowed. So instead they just kind of did a lot of like lucha heel shtick spots, like that thing. So like, yeah, Sonata was pumping away on Dick Togo's arm and then turned around slowly and realized it was like, oh no, I'm sorry. And Dick Togo pointing at him, and then they get attacked by the baby faces. So yeah, if they did more of that, I'd probably watch them more. But that's what Dick Togo's late career should be. He shouldn't be what he is. It's very disheartening. But
he could be doing anything else and it would be better. But
do you remember early 2020, right before the pandemic,
when he was working those like Strong Heart shows?
God, who's
the Noah Matt? Was it him and Harada?
I think him and Harada. I think him and Ogawa have a match.
Did he and Hayata have a really good match?
I think they might have. As shocking as that sounds, to 26 years.
Your words.
And then like literally like 5 months later, he shows up in New Japan, and it's like the worst of early pandemic, and I'm like, oh my god, it was like it gave me life. I was like, Dick Togo is in New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, this is great. And yeah, hasn't really panned out that way.
Dick Togo versus Daisuke Harada from the January 30th, 2020 Noah Cork and Hall show. I'm shocked it's only a 7.79 on Cage Match. I think I had that at 4.5. If for some reason people haven't seen that match, it's right before the pandemic, so it's a normal Japanese crowd. Everybody has to go see that match. That's why we are as kind to Dick Togo as we are.
Yeah.
Of all the things that got fucked by the pandemic that were well known, like Shima's plans, early AEW, John Moxley title reign, like all these things, very well known how the pandemic screwed them up. Not enough people, I think, talk about Pro Wrestling Noah got off to a sneaky awesome start in 2020, and they did actually manage to keep their head above water and produce some decent stuff like Nakajima and Keno and stuff in the clap crowd era. But God, I wonder what version of Noah we would have ended up with if there was no pandemic. That's an interesting thing to think about. All Japan too. All Japan was on fire. 2020, the first week of Japanese wrestling in 2020, Wrestle Kingdom week, was fucking incredible.
Well, I always bring it up. Like Dragon Gate Business was really good in 2020 before
Doi's title reign.
Yes.
Who did Doi wrestle in?
Susumu. He wrestled KZ in February. He wrestled Susumu at the last show before COVID.
Yep. Dragon Gate was on fire. Everyone was like on fire going into the pandemic.
Which makes sense because we were all like we left 2019 going like, you know what's awesome? Japanese wrestling. And then COVID changed everything.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, didn't we like also, like, you brought up Harada. Okay, Harada, for some reason I thought he retired in COVID and not after COVID, because I was going to say, like, I feel that was one of those things that Harada especially like ending the decade where he was and how things kind of panned out for him was always such a big bummer. I was always a big Daisuke Harada fan.
Oh my God, yeah. No, I mean, as clean of a wrestler as there's ever been.
Speaking of Daisuke Harada, Case didn't get your reference on the last Open the Voice Gate, Mike, but I really appreciate your Gordy shout out on
Thank
the last
you.
Open the Voice Gate. That guy was a gem. What a nice guy. I exchanged messages with that guy a bunch. He'd tell me his stories about going to Osaka Pro. They'd all be out drinking, all the fans of the wrestlers. It sounded like
Him
the
and
most
Kuga.
yeah, it sounded like the most incredible like communal family kind of atmosphere of going to like small time wrestling and just that guy was a sweetheart. Yeah, he'd always have the photos where this guy Case, he was like this probably late 40s, early 50s.
I'd say, yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin looking white guy with big guns who just you knew he'd just go to the gym and just do curls, and he'd take all these photos of himself with like Zeus and they'd be flexing together. Phenomenal.
Yeah, him and Bodyguard and Zeus just always out lifting together, like, and then him going out drinking with Kuga and Black Buffalo and friends. It still, like, I have a sense of longing that I feel like, boy, that would have been a fun life to lead, like that. With that, I hope that Gordy is still with us and doing well, at least.
Yes, for sure.
I feel like I should know this guy, but I don't.
Yeah, he probably just was a year or two before you started going onto the message boards and stuff, I'd say.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, no, he was a great one. Any other like big thoughts about the match? The finish, Delphin is able to get the isolation. He goes for the Dolphin clutch. Togo just punches him, just clocks, breaking up the Dolphin clutch.
He had no time for that bullshit move. It was great.
Which is something I always love about the chemistry between the two of them, that they just like the hatred with that, and that leads to him being able to distract a referee Matsui a little bit, to do a mule kick, power bomb, top rope senton.
Right before that, Super Delphin hit the Osaka special, the German into the second German,
right?
Or it was, I think, one German into the bridge, the roll through bridge.
Yeah, the Dolphin special.
Yeah. Oh, it was one of the best ones he's ever hit. It looked incredible. The speed, because like Togo comes for like a clothesline, and he is going at such a speed, and Delphin ducks and then whiplashes Togo back with a German, and yeah, that was incredible. It almost was enough to make up for the fact that I think one of my biggest problems with this match is there wasn't enough of a closing stretch, and I think that's one of the big, and it sounds weird to say that about a 32-minute match. You could argue that, like, I don't know, the last 12 or 13 minutes of it was all closing stretch, but I feel like other matches, and particularly I'm thinking 12-16, has a much more defined, okay, these last 5 minutes are what we have escalated to, and now it is just all bets are off. It's insane. You're going to see action coming at you from left, right, and center, crazy near falls. I think for me, in addition to the points I made earlier with like maybe not as much heat, maybe a little bit slower, I think one of the biggest things this match is lacking is that it doesn't have the near falls that I would want to consider it an epic.
Well, it seems like they're trying to do an epic Delphin closing stretch, and Delphin does not bring the charisma or the intensity to it. He's the most subdued guy of the 10 guys in this match, and yeah. I think their goal is that, when you think about the history of this promotion in 93, 94, 95, all of the Togo versus Delphin stuff, they're trying to close that match out with that. And I don't think Delphin brings enough to the table. I think that's why it falls flat.
Yeah, as he hits that one great move I talked about, but other than that, you're right. He's kind of passive, and that was one thing I definitely had circled that I wanted to mention. But the senton is fantastic, and I love Funaki sliding in and doing the count along with the ref.
Good.
What a moment that is! That is just great thinking on your feet, pro wrestling, and fair play to Funaki for that. That was a great moment. The other thing that I just had in my notes, the only other thing on this match, but it goes right back to the start. When I talked about kind of lost things, I love the sense of team that you have, and Death Riders are good for this. Specifically, the act I'm going to talk about, but both teams in huddles before the match, and yeah, like I like that, the idea that okay, you've got these two teams and they're discussing strategy and they're talking about okay, who's going to start and like okay, everyone good. Just that kind of thing just gives that sense of being authentic and realistic. That yeah, I loved it. That was a nice touch to the match. In addition to all the other good stuff, in the pre-match that we talked about already.
Let me read because I know we're going a little long here, but I'd rather spend more time on this than on the main event. Let me read what Dave writes in the November 11th, 1996 Observer when talking about this match. He gives the result and then he says, "An off the charts flying in high spots exhibition. This match shouldn't have the intensity or psychology that you'd expect from an All Japan men's or women's match of the year. That said, it's a must see, nearly flawless match with one great move after another, nonstop." And it's as good as a match for the Michinoku style as probably as humanly possible. For sure, when you take Sasuke at 100%, and this is a classic Dave sentence, for sure, when you take Sasuke at 100% out of the mix. Michinoku and Funaki, who work for various indies as a tag team, were really impressive doing simultaneous moves. If they get more exposure and team together for another year, they have the potential to be one of the all-time great tag teams.
Wow.
Yakashiji is small, but his timing and moves are excellent. Nanawa, who is only 19, is probably destined to become one of the great workers of the next generation. Barring injury, Michinoku is almost a lock for that category, even throwing in the fact that he's very small, 5 stars.
God, that Nanawa comment is sad.
It's devastating. And it's funny. So if you the Michinoku and Funaki thing, Dave writes that where they have the potential, as Dave says, to become one of the all-time great tag teams. And then if you read the DVD-VR review from Phil Schneider, or not Phil Schneider, Dean from DVD-VR 16, a lot of his review is he's now going to search out and find every Taka and Funaki tag match that makes tape to try to review them. So the impression those guys were leaving, that has become, when we look at the booking with the benefit of hindsight of Michinoku, not running with them as a tag team more is probably a mistake in hindsight, because they very clearly had some groundswell of momentum as a tag team that people were noticing and picking up on. But 5 stars from Dave Meltzer in 1996.
They would go into their legacy as a tag team being in one of the WWE games for the N64. They don't even get individual characters. You have to change the outfit whether you want to select Taka or Funaki. They didn't want to use up 2 game slots for those guys. Like, it was them, and it was like the Cat and Deborah, I think, were the other ones that were
naturally.
Right. Yeah.
Or Cat and Terry, I think it was actually. But yeah, brutal.
But we don't need to do because we all lived through a time where the Meltzer star ratings really, really mattered and held influence beyond. If you came into this in 2018 or later, post the first Okada Omega match, it's really hard to explain the influence that these stars had. But 5 stars from Dave Meltzer in 1996. It's not an accident from there that they end up in ECW. It's not an accident from there that they end up in the WWF. It's not an accident, as we'll talk about when we get to 1997, that they were heavily courted by WCW. This is the reason that, despite this show being what it is, which is not a very good wrestling show, and despite the fact that this match, I mean, I'd be curious to know what you got. I have it at 4.5 stars, but I know we're going to come across many more multi-man matches that are better than this. This is the reason, I think even more so than being in the big room, that this match has the reputation that it does.
It's a match where, more than most, where I can't separate the idea that I would have a different rating with 2026 eyes and all the wrestling I've watched versus if I put myself in 1996 and was watching this, or even if I put myself in my actual life in like as a late teen, early 20s in like the 2000s, watching this, I think I would have given it a significantly higher rating. It's a match where it just, not that it doesn't hold up, but yeah, it's just it. I would say with 2026 eyes, I would say like 4.25. But yeah, I think I could see being a Dave Meltzer in 1996 and giving it 5 stars. I can totally see that. Knowing Dave, knowing what wrestling he had seen up to that point, and fans of his ilk and of his mindset, like, yeah, I can completely see the 5-star rating. I do think he's I gotta pull him up on one thing about saying it doesn't have the psychology of like an All Japan main event or an All Japan women's match of the year.
But that's such a
I don't know.
Dave line for 1996.
It is, but I thought, like, I don't know, what great psychology am I missing from like the classic All Japan women? Because I don't know, I find them to be the ultimate kind of go go go, somewhat lacking in psychology. That like very similar in style to this match. And I love a lot of that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, like yeah, I get like yeah, you've got serious psychology in like June 9th, 1995 tag match in All Japan, and plenty of other great matches as well. But outside of a couple of Joshi matches, I know a lot of the. I'm not sure I've ever seen a Manami Toyota match that I would consider having excellent psychology. So yeah.
I think Dave Meltzer would disagree with you.
Yeah, I'm at 4.5. I do think that this is like a lot of the matches that you can reassess. That Alan, as you're saying, in 2026 eyes, it's just I find it a lot more interesting because of the cyberneco element, and if we're talking about like the theses of what is like the cutting edge of Lucha Rust, we would see 2 months later what the actual cutting edge was. I'm a little bit like, I feel that it the match format really kind of saves it in some ways. That if it was if they weren't going to do it in the matchup base and then finally doing heat, I don't know how you could have gone 30 minutes with this match, really, with it. I
It
mean,
flies by. It doesn't overstay
yeah.
its welcome at all. At no point am I like, come on, guys, get a move on here. And I was, as I said earlier, I was really surprised when I saw 32. I assumed the 10 minutes had been clipped off, but it hadn't been. Yeah, no, the format, if you like, because I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, but if you like sort of CMLL Cybernetico matches, this is probably better than any of them I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's kind of the way to look at this match versus how we will look at future matches that will be a little bit more better at it. I do think
it's not like a Dragon Gate 6-man in
No.
2005 or 6 or 7. It's not like that. The 12-16 match is more of that mold. This is it's a different kind of mold, and it's great for what it is. And yeah, it absolutely succeeded. You can't say it's not. For any like critique I have of it, it's nothing if not a huge success. So
yeah,
The main event, I would say, not a huge success.
No, so it's Hayabusa versus Jinsei Shinzaki. It is. I mean, let's kind of get into it. It is some of the most. When I think of Hayabusa, these are usually the kind of performances as someone who's not as high on Hayabusa as a lot of others, that it kind of is what I expect out of him, and just does not work with Jinsei Shinzaki essentially doing a power wrestler version of Jinsei Shinzaki set up and spot, basically.
what's that phrase that terrible wrestling podcasters use to describe matches that kind of suck but are featuring wrestlers that they think are cool?
Vibes.
I believe it's aura farming. Is that what these guys were doing here?
Yes. No. This case, as the young man, is this aura farming?
That is Hayabusa's whole career, is that all he was doing was aura farming. Because I used to say that about Shinzaki, but he's actually turned out to be a pretty good wrestler in this series. But every time I watch Hayabusa, I go, that cool entrance. Not much else between the bells, and that is the definition of aura farming.
Jinsei took some of those northeastern Japan Tohoku farming skills and brought them to Tokyo, and he farmed some aura on this night with Hayabusa. It was, yeah, he did a whole lot of nothing and just kind of looked cool. And I was like, I can't criticize this. Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki. It's how I imagine like WWE fans feel about like Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns matches. That's like whenever I hear like I don't know, like the flagship review of the WWE show, and they just like bury it and make it sound like just the worst thing on earth. And I kind of think that if I watched it, I'd probably feel the same way, given my taste. And then I'll like hear something else, and like someone will be like either treating the match with much like um uh kinder gloves, and or even actively like talking about it being good. And I'll be like, oh, okay, that's what this is. So yeah, that's the same feeling. Yeah, like look, they did kind of know. It was strange though, because Hayabusa goes backstage and it looks like he had been through a war. So, but I suppose he did kind of get tossed around a bunch by Shinzaki, but there was no heat at all. Um,
None.
Shinzaki just did a bunch of moves, with like big long gaps of nothing in between them. Um, and then the finish was a series of really crappy looking diving headbutts, which he just meandered around the ring slowly doing. I was like, "What are you going for here, man? This is not the dynamic. This is the Jinsei Shinzaki that Case was expecting
Yes.
going into this project,
100% yes.
and not the fella we saw just murdering Men's Teo in a car park in 1993. So yeah, this is this like for me in that whole era of what I was describing and getting into Japanese wrestling, like Jinsei Shinzaki in Japan was this match and the Muda match, and as such, held a certain opinion of the man for the longest time. And I would see some stuff later where he does stuff with like Fujita Hayada and Sasuke himself, which kind of won him back into my good graces. And I always had a soft spot for his WF work because that was during my peak childhood fandom. So I did have a soft spot in my heart for him. But yes, seeing some of his pre WWF stuff in Michinoku Pro, which I'd really never seen before, as part of this, that changed my opinion on him. But now seeing this here, it's like, oh yeah, that's what he was. He does have, to be fair, he does have the really cool tag stuff with Hayabusa in All Japan, particularly the Holy Demon Army match, which is one of my favorite matches of all time. You want to talk about guys farming some aura? The entrances of that match, holy shit! But yeah, this was just a really drab way to end this show. But I did like everyone coming out at the end and Sasuke doing a speech. I love the way the camera, they did this in the 10 man as well. The camera follows, there's a camera like on
Yes.
the aisle, like waiting for the guys to walk back, and then follows them backstage in one shot. So you kind of just see them going, there's no cut, you just see them going right backstage. It's like you're going back there with the wrestlers, and it's all
Right.
very, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was good, and they get some good interview footage at the end, which is, I suppose, a big staple of this whole project in Michinoku Pro to this point, the backstage interviews. So that would have been a shame if we didn't have good versions of those. So good thing we do. And then yeah, then I mentioned what I said earlier about Sasuke and the slow mo package at the end, with the clips. So yeah, that's everything I had jotted. Oh, sorry, no, one other thing um when they were going backstage and you were seeing just people standing around, you see Gran Hamada standing around. He's showered, he's gotten changed, he's in his slacks, he's got the belt on, he's got the nice shoes on. But because he's a pro wrestler, he is still shirtless. So
Cool as hell, as always.
classic wrestler behavior.
So, Alan, I'm glad you brought up the camera work, because that was a point that I forgot to make on the 10-man tag. I love the fact that they that as Kai and Tai Deluxe were marching in the back, they kept the camera on them as they were basically chatting shit to each other on the way back, like big upping each other as the babyface army is trying to go like, what are we to do with this force? And you just have like the five of them at just being smug, and just the camera work of them coming through the Sumo Hall tunnel was just exceptional.
They used the tunnel really well. There's a great shot during new Tiger Mask's entrance, where they're behind him in the tunnel, and you see him just emerge into Sumo Hall, and you see at the same time you see the top of Sumo Hall enter the shot, and the bottom of Tiger Mask's cape. So you just see at the bottom of your screen, at the bottom of his cape, he's just got just giant letters, Tiger Mask. And then you see just the top of Sumo Hall, this beautiful building, and you just see this all in the frame at the same time. Really, really great shot just during his entrance.
Yeah, it's really just incredible stuff. So in the post match, it is the babyface army all in the ring. This is after Sasuke, or this is after Jinsei wins with 3 diving headbutts, and then a praying last ride power bomb. In this, Sasuke finally asks Jinsei Shinzaki once again to join Sekigun and join the fight against Kai and Tai Deluxe. And Shinzaki shakes his hand, and we have a new member of the babyface army. Somehow, almost all of Delphin Corps ends up now being babyfaces, and they're now, after the loss in Ryogoku, trying to refocus and get momentum back on their side against the war against Kai and Tai Deluxe. Just incredible, just basically just promo work after that to just have you already ramped up, because now you're going, well, hell, I wonder what Jinsei Shinzaki and Masato Yakashiji look as a tag team, and now they're on the same side, so we might get that.
Very much so. And that concludes these days, I think, a very odd show in the history of Japanese wrestling. One that I understand why it has the legacy that it does. And at the same time, I think it's a little bizarre that it has the legacy that it does. But it is one of those essential viewings if you've never seen it before. I cannot say that I recommend this show from start to finish. But if you've never seen that 10-man tag, of course, make some time to carve that out. Give that a watch. Alan, before we go, because we have been going for 3 hours, I'm going to send it straight to you for the plugs. Anything that you need the people to know?
Well, it's timely because I saw this earlier today, and I thought it was made a note to myself that I need to include it in the plugs, because PW Torch has been very good to me. Wade Keller has been very good to me, and it's a place I'm proud to rest my hat when it comes to my my podcasting. And I guess they sent around for any lapsed subscribers, as these websites tend to do, to kind of say, hey, come back. And I think I didn't see myself, but I guess there's some kind of an offer if you're coming back. But I did see this snip from it, which made me a little bit happy to see. It's a big pro wrestling weekend of pay-per-views and PLEs from AEW, WWE, NXT, TNA. I'm inviting you to return as a VIP member and check out our coverage this weekend and beyond. We pride ourselves on bringing you thoughtful analysis and independent, non-corporate owned, non-AI and non-SEO driven coverage of this fascinating industry with a diversity of voices on our team. And I was like, yeah, fist pump, Wade, good on you, because there's not enough people with that mindset out there. And obviously Voice of Wrestling, where this podcast is housed, is one of those. And I'm proud always to have the association I'm allowed to have with all you guys here on Voice of Wrestling. And if you are a lapsed fan, there's so much great stuff to go, or a lapsed subscriber on PW Torch, there's so much great stuff to go back and rejoin and check out. And if you've never subscribed, if you've never heard my podcast and you've made it through 3 hours of me here and you don't think I'm full of shit, then you might want to check out more of my shows. And I have 8 years worth of them on the Torch now, which is crazy to think about. I feel like I just joined there last week, but it was 8 years ago. And there's a lot of great stuff. Had Mike on, had Case on. Case mentioned the Eddie Guerrero show we did last year. Me and Mike did a whole show about Akira Tozawa, which I loved. So much great stuff over the years. And
a bunch of greatest wrestler ever shows with the 3 of us in 2021. Some greatest wrestler ever shows with Alan and I from April of this year.
Yeah. And then I think I'll have one more show going up for this month, which I will be recording tomorrow, which I'm excited for. I do a monthly series, What's on the Telly, where we just kind of pick 2 episodes, myself and a guest, different guest every month. We pick an episode each of wrestling television from that month in history, and we just chop it up about it and have fun doing so. And somehow the shows always go about as long as this one did. So yeah, you get a solid, 8 hours of audio from me every month over on the Torch, and there's plenty of other great stuff. Earlier I was listening to, or as well, plenty of sorry, plenty of other great stuff from in the archives from the past. I was listening to something earlier. Always a treat when you listen to Wade's old radio shows and you get callers calling in, like Mike from Minnesota today, who I listened to. He called in on the June 6, 1993 episode to talk about the house show he was at. And he said, Wade, that Luna Vachon, she sure is in shape, isn't she? Wade responded, she's a very good wrestler too. Wade, Wade having the back there of Luna, and yeah. Then another lady, Kathy, was she was after our hearts for all of us, because she called in and talked about how just the WWF wasn't even wrestling anymore. It's bullshit. She's going to go to real wrestling like the PWA in Minnesota. Shout out to Wellington Wilkins and Lenny Lane to tie it into this show, but great callers, great banter with Wade and his co-host. That's just like one show in the archives, and there's just so much great stuff. There's great other guests. I do regular shows with Sean Radican talking New Japan stuff. He'll pull me on to discuss some modern New Japan stuff, and when I have some vitriol to spit about that promotion, or if I want to rave about something like I did Shingo and Callum Newman, I'll be on there doing that with him. But yeah, loads there on the Torch. So that's my big long-winded plug. So people do check that out, PW Torch VIP.
Well, before I send it to Mike to close things out, I do want to note that, first of all, thank you, Alan, for joining us. Second of all, a full archive of those days is on the Open the Voice Gate podcast feed. You can go back to Michinoku Pro from the very beginning and listen to the work that Mike and I have done over the last year and a half almost covering Michinoku Pro. As for episode 18, the next time you hear from us, which I'm already telling people now, and Mike knows this, will be sometime in August. You're not getting a July episode. It's not. Mike and I have looked at the calendars. It's not happening. But sometime in August, we'll be back for episode 18, which will feature another foray into WAR, a foray into JWP as they work with Michinoku Pro, and the 1996 Michinoku Pro Tag League, which features the emergence of El Higel del Santo as a Michinoku Pro wrestler. So you have that to look forward to on the next episode of Those Days.
Oh, right. It's almost time for a Trip for Two tournament for this year. I'm hoping that after we got to see a good bit of it from last year, we're able.
Was that what it was called? A Trip for Two?
It translates out to a Trip for Two. That's
fantastic. I love that.
Hey, the tape that we watched to start this thing, Lucha no Kuni, translates into in the lane of Lucha 1996 Heartbreak. They are on fire with names in Michinoku Pro with further stuff.
Better than Dragon Gate AI Pedro Pascal or whatever they're calling their shows.
Ain't that the case? Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Those Days. We'll be back with you in August. You could find us on social media at Open Voice Gate, both on Twitter and on Blue Sky. Alan's on Blue Sky at alan4l.social.bluesky. Both Case and I are on Twitter. Case is at _ in your case. I'm at Fujihei of 2 eyes for Don.
I even showed up there recently to wreck William Regal, or at least the person who William Regal is paying to run his account at the
moment. But you can find us there on social media. There's also the Voices of Wrestling Discord. There's the Dragon Gate channel for the Dragon Gate content that we do. But more importantly to this, the Open the Voice Gate channel. That's where we do show postings and match listings. So to close out, we have noticed that there has been a bunch of footage that has gone missing from when it has been uploaded. I am personally doing kind of a background project to get everything at least from now on onto the Internet Archive, so people can download that without any worry of it being stricken, and you're able to cast it using your own devices for that. And there will be a big spreadsheet in that channel, basically with the links in for all those matches going forward from that.
Suck it, Gaora.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Gaora out of nowhere is starting to care about this stuff, but it's 32 years old, essentially dead media. It's not like that Gaora posts stuff like this on their YouTube channel to begin with, but they are the copyright holder.
If they offered I'll even say $20, I would pay $20 if they said for $20 a month we are going to give you a streaming archive with all the Dragon Gate footage, like it just literally, if it was taped on a camera, it's going to be available there in full. All the Dragon Gate, all the Michinoku Pro, all the fucking Oz Academy, all the everything we have.
The All Japan that they had starting in 2000.
$20 a month. Mike, I would come after you myself to get you to take down your pirated bullshit on behalf of Gaora and protect their business, but they're not going to do that, so they should fuck off and just leave that stuff out there. But anyway.
Yeah, but it will be posted. The updates for this will be posted on the Discord. And wish we weren't the ones that had to do this for it, but that's the hand that we have been dealt. But that's going to do it for our this edition for Those Days. We'll be back with you in August with the next edition for that, and back on this feed next week with Open the Voice Gate. So for Case and Alan, I'm Mike. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I am the host of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, a show right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we take a deep look at individual issues and stories that are going on in the wrestling world. Each episode is about a different topic, and we take a thorough and educated look at things ranging from current booking trends to breakdowns on individual performers and angles to investigations into different fan cultures across the industry. In addition, we keep a close eye on the wrestling media, and as a professional journalist, I bring a unique perspective to how current issues in wrestling are being covered and discussed through the wrestling media. We have a revolving series of guests from across wrestling punditry joining us on each episode, and we hope that you make the choice to give us a listen on wherever you get your podcast from.